It's very official.
Yeah. That part's gonna get cut out, so we're just gonna start with you laughing.
Anyways, that's a really good part to use in an Instagram story.
You're watching the Redbuddies Podcast. This is our 11th episode, and this is where we stir drama.
Yeah.
Cause a ruckus in general.
Yep.
We don't really do those things, but we do have controversial opinions.
Yeah.
And a communist.
What?
On the podcast. And that's a great thing. We love having a communist because that's a buzzword. And we will, at the end of the day, sell out ourselves and everything we believe in for views.
Exactly.
So it's actually pretty sick having a communist. But today we have a special guest. And
and after that introduction, I have no idea why I'm here.
Maybe, perhaps you're here in contrast to the communist. Yeah. Actually, you're not like...
I'm not a capitalist. What is this?
You're not a capitalist? We should talk about that.
Oh my god.
Anyways.
Every episode, Arshad has to propagate the idea that he's a rugged individual that's going to fight his way through society to make money and become rich.
And you know what? Even if that's not a productive mentality for me to have, I prefer to have that mentality than the other one. But anyways.
I have a joke.
Can I introduce the guest?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot that. Yeah.
Today's guest is Chaplain Kaiser Aslam, who today...
Wasn't the point not to use his title?
Yeah, but I'm getting there. Today is just one of the boys, Kaiser Aslam. So Kaiser Bhai, I call him Kaiser Bhai because it just means
term of endearment, I hope.
It's a term of endearment. It's like older brother type. But how are you?
Alhamdulillah, it's good to be here.
Alhamdulillah, that's good. You've obviously, you were telling us a little bit before about how things are really different because of coronavirus. So you're someone that people go to a lot for, a lot of help when you're on campus. People have different types of issues that they come to you about, and you do help a lot of people. How's that kind of changed during Corona?
So, I think there's been a change for everyone, and I get to feel the effect of that because I get to hear people's usually private monologues a little bit more than I think normal. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, as the semester started, and even before the semester started, the amount of interactions I've had haven't decreased, even though I don't see people in person as much. Mm-hmm. But if anything, they've stayed the same / slightly increased. But a lot of what people are coming for are not external factors, but family issues. I'm trying to get along with my family. Feelings of purposelessness are starting to take over because a lot of what we would use to manage some of our things like loneliness, feeling like we're not worth anything, we'd have hobbies that allow us to mask it and oftentimes actually confront it. People don't have access to that anymore, so they're seeking out professional help for that type of thing.
Right, and there's I would say, we were talking about this earlier, there's kind of a new breed of problem that people are having during coronavirus. That's I guess people had that to a certain degree before coronavirus, but they have it more so right now. We were talking about this earlier, about how some of the problems that people are having are because they're around their family more, and therefore problems that exist within their family, I guess, are emphasized or highlighted during coronavirus because everyone's just around and amongst each other. One of the things we were talking about earlier is the divorce rates skyrocketing as a result of coronavirus, and how what was the figure?
Yeah, so it's somewhere up around, it's a 7% to 8% increase and this is specifically from law agencies litigating for divorces. So the number might be actually higher for people who maybe aren't going through that legal means in order to actually initiate their divorce. But there are a lot of reasons for that. I can even say in my own personal kind of experience with people, there's an intake form anytime someone sets up a counseling session with me, and that intake form has a description. And it'll randomly give me buzzwords if it's been the same one, if there's an increase in some sort of reason. And the keyword of divorce popped up 2 weeks ago because I had again close to 30% of the meetings for that week were either processing a parent's divorce, were considering divorce, or were wondering what divorce is going to do to their family.
Yeah, and I'm sure that, like I said, that's kind of been highlighted by coronavirus. I think there's a lot of unique problems, for example, an increase in divorce and other relationship problems that people might have. But also, we were kind of talking about this on the other podcast episodes. I think coronavirus is. I don't know if you've gotten any like an increase of like mental health issues or depression issues during coronavirus. What we were talking about in another episode is over the summer, I had worked an internship. You had also worked an internship, and what was happening was I was upstairs. So I would sleep in my comfortable bed. I would have a laptop next to me. I would wake up for my meeting, lean forward in my bed, put my laptop on my lap, and have the meeting. When it was done, I would close it.
There's no moment of transition.
To the side, and I'd go back to sleep. And I'm like, this can't be good for me.
No.
Like, there's no way that can be any good for my mental health, for my physical health. You know what I mean? So...
Yeah, there's no moment of transition there. You went from maybe dreaming about something, like that grogginess, to a professional meeting at times, to going right back to, to sleep. No, and we need moments of transition to really process it. Even when we think about the greatest memories you've ever had. That memory doesn't just pop out of nowhere. It took a while. Like, we drove somewhere. You even like all of that becomes background noise of like. You walked somewhere, you had a conversation with your family, but it was all leading up to that perfect memory. And then for that memory to become encoded, you had a lot of like ramping down time.
Right.
Now you just go from thing to thing. I feel the same way even with when I'm talking to people on a day-to-day basis. I sometimes have upwards to 8 meetings in a single day.
Yeah.
I used to have the opportunity to like get out of my office, walk around, talk to people, like look at a tree, that type of thing. And now it's like, no, meeting after to meeting to meeting. There's no in between. And small talk also doesn't feel nearly as rewarding in a virtual setting.
Right. Like there's a... Like, I'm able to see you. I'm able to see your facial expressions, your hand gestures. And when I was having those meetings and stuff, I would get up. You were just saying how, like, you'd be dreaming about something, you get up. Like, I still have, like, my stank breath. Like, I still, like, my hair is still, like...
I'm assuming you're still in your pajamas other than, like, the waist down, right?
Yeah. And I have, like, a nice shirt on, and it's, like... I like do up my hair just a little bit. It's like this is so bad. It's so fake. Did you have like a...
No, literally for me at least, I didn't have set meetings. Well, during the summer I didn't have set meetings because my boss was really chill. But what happened is everyone DM'd everyone on Slack, which is like you use it in a professional setting. So I think I trained myself to not get up to my alarm, but to get up to my Slack notification sound. So I used to get up early, turn my laptop on, put up the volume all the way, and go to sleep. And I would sleep past my alarm, but anytime I heard a ding, I would just get up and answer it, and then go right back to sleep. Because like that was the only thing that mattered. Like I didn't have to get up at a set time. And like as you said, like I just had my I sleep in like a queen size bed, so I would sleep on one half and I would have my laptop on the other side, and I literally just had to turn over, read the message, type something, and go back to sleep.
Yeah, they're your future employer actually, because some of these episodes have your name on them. There's a real humble.
I just like gave away.
My name too.
Just gave away your best practices.
Well, what we've been doing, usually what we've been doing is we don't talk about this stuff until like an hour in. Ain't nobody watch until an hour in.
Yeah,
right?
that's our first opening.
Went right in. So if they open up this episode, your professional lives are destroyed.
I've been in the process of like job applications and stuff right now, and I was like, do I need to private any of these episodes? I don't think we do.
I think we're fine because like it shows character. It's like like how many employers are actually gonna go through and see the podcast? They just see, oh, he does a podcast. It shows that he has.
Depends on how important of a job are you applying for.
Yeah,
But our titles are a little bit.
Our titles are plain, which is what I've been.
No, they're not.
There are.
No, we have one title called "Why Domestic Violence."
Our clips are not plain, but like our episode title name is just episode 10 guest name. That's it.
So
yeah, that shouldn't be that bad.
Yeah.
But I think to your greater point, I've actually done an experiment with myself of not dressing up necessarily or just looking just presentable enough from like the top down and doing a meeting versus like getting up like I would be on a typical day if I was walking into work. And you behave differently, and not so much with the content of your speech, but I'm talking the mannerisms, how if you're going to use body language, how that's going to be there. And when you actually become self-reflective, like how you dress will dictate how you behave. So letting ourselves go so much on that is gonna have some pretty negative consequences.
You know what I wanted to bring up before was so I wanted to bring up before was, is this something that's been introduced because of Corona, or is it something that's just been furthered by our situation? Because I saw a really interesting documentary literally yesterday called The Social Dilemma, right? And
our last two guests told us to watch that.
Yeah, I finally watched it, but
I didn't watch it.
Yeah, so in this,
it's great. It's on Netflix.
It's really good.
You watch it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a really good documentary. And what I liked about it especially is like, besides the talking parts, they had like a side plot of like the young kid slowly getting influenced. And this is something really funny. You'll love. What happened was in the beginning of the documentary, they showed like the companies only care about three things. It's like growth, engagement, and I'm forgetting the third one. But like, do you know what I'm talking about?
I remember vaguely, yeah.
Yeah, so they care about three things. So like the way the documentary works is they have a running like narration with some like interviews with some people on their opinion on how tech works, and alongside that they have scenes of like a normal everyday life of a family, right, and how they're influenced by tech. So in that family there's a kid, right, and like there's like a bet, like can he stay off the phone for 7 days or something like that, right? So they show his literal deterioration from like I'm not even kidding.
Symptoms?
Straight up withdrawal. He's literally just like depressed, looking at a window, laying on his bed, looking at the ceiling, doing nothing because there's nothing to do without your phone.
And I think what that documentary does really well is not blaming the kid for it.
Yes.
Because the actual onus of the blame goes towards the designers. Because it wasn't that they happened to make something that was addictive. They went into it trying to make it addictive.
Do you think Mark Zuckerberg is a sociopath?
I don't have enough experience or enough exposure to him to diagnose him properly, and I take diagnosis like that very, very seriously. No, but kind of as proof for the last part.
We'll find some soundbite of you saying yes, and we'll
piece it together completely. Well, that's why body language is important, because you won't be able to fake that. But to that point, they were showing, there was a really good soundbite on there where they were talking about how to unlock a phone screen. You know how the iPhone used to have that slide to unlock and it made that sound? Yeah. They actually used the same sound that a typical slot machine would use. They delayed it, not because the phone couldn't handle the processing, but because they wanted that 0.2 seconds, which is what we rely for anticipation to take place. So it's like a dopamine machine. It's constantly giving you dopamine hits.
And by the way, real quick, I just wanna introduce our audience member who you can't see is off camera, is Omar. Feel free to.
Yeah, you can jump wherever you want. Whatever. No, but then on top of it, they said another thing was like, do you really think that website was chosen for that color randomly? No, they used like 60,000 different colors to see which gave the most engagements, right? So the point I was trying to make before that you would like is, on that side plot where they're showing the kid, they have like a image, not an image, but like a room that represents the tech, like the AI tech, trying to get the people to use their things more. So they have like Inside Out, how they have like the characters representing the emotions. Mm-hmm. It's very similar to that. Where they have three.
That is a great movie, by the way.
Amazing movie.
Pixar just generally makes good stuff, but Inside Out, especially for someone who even has an ounce of psychology background, so good.
I watched it for my psych and film class at Rutgers. Like that was the required movie, which is so good. But we can get into that later. Anyway, so they have three people that represent like the three different things: growth, engagement, and something else. The guy who plays that, by the way, is Peter from Mad Men.
What's his name? Yeah,
it's the same guy. So So what they do is like
great actor, brother.
Yeah, amazing actor. But like what they do, the interesting thing was, which I never thought about, which is nothing I need to get to, but like they literally record how often you stay on a post. So Instagram, for example, is infinite scrolling, right? So if I stay on a post for 0.25 versus 0.4 versus 0.3, and then you can see them updating the thing in real time that he enjoys this more. And they notice that, he's been using this less. Let's put out something that'll bring him back. Yeah. So the bet was like, can you stay off the phone for 7 days? And the people inside the machine are going crazy. Like, oh my God, he hasn't used his phone in 4 days. What's happening? We're losing all this money. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And they do the calculations. They're like, this will give a 99% chance of him coming back. And they send a notification of involving his ex, right? And then he just...
That was ridiculous.
It's crazy.
That's how they get him.
Exactly.
So, that's how I think you bring up like a huge point. Not that I'm a conspiracy theorist for like things like AI is going to rule the world or something like that.
Out on this episode.
But sometimes we talk about like, oh, robots are going to become self-aware to the point where they're going to kill human beings. I don't think that's going to be it. It's going to be us who are dumb enough to say, hey, we need more engagement. So what we're going to do is we're going to kill our own nervous responses to the point where we're so dopamine happy all the time that we can't have a normal human existence anymore.
Yeah.
So we kill our own humanity without necessarily killing us biologically.
Exactly. That was the scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had like that specific scene where it's like you don't have to worry about when the AI takes over the human strengths. You have to worry about when AI takes over the human weakness, because then we can no longer fight back. They've already fought us at our lowest level. It was something like that.
I swear to God, I was on my phone the other day and I thought about something.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone has this story. I thought about it.
Yeah.
I thought about it, and guess
It
what
comes up,
popped
right?
On my phone. It comes
Yeah.
up.
And
there's something. There's
dude,
something.
Google something once. I was we recently sharing too much information about myself, but we upgraded my daughter to a bed from a crib. So we got a new mattress, and I Googled mattress once. I have so many Nectar, Purple, Avocado. I can name you every single mattress brand right now, not because I researched it, but
Yeah.
I Googled it once, and they've done the algorithm where like, oh, no one researches mattresses unless they're gonna buy one. So it's all over. But the scariest part of that is, like you were saying, right when I thought it was there, that leaves you no room to ever be challenged or someone to change your views. It is such an echo chamber, because not only is it going to give you your view, but everything related to your view will just always be in front of you.
You know, I have a Google Home there, and I plug that thing out. I plug that sucker out because I ain't never plugging that thing back in ever again.
Yeah.
Because I swear it listens, man. I swear it listens.
They definitely do. My wife, we have too much time on our hands. But we've done that where we'll plug it in and then we'll talk about stuff, and then we'll see if our ads change on our Gmail and other stuff, and they do.
It does. No, literally, I was about to say, one time me and my friends were hanging out, and we're like, yo, I really want to go see a movie. And we're just walking down the street, right? I open my phone, and the first thing I get from an email is from Adam, the movie company, like the ticketing company, and it's like, oh, here's a 15% off thing, go use it. And I'm just like, what the hell? We're walking down the street talking about movies, and you get that right there.
So
it's off and everything.
I have an awesome story about that, because I think this is a problem of religious people at times, where like we think, oh, coincidence means it's a sign. And you're like, we were just talking about it, and look, the ad showed up. It's a sign. I'm like, it's not a sign. That's proof that there's a robot listening to us. But there was always like, I was thinking about it, and it came up. I'm like, dude, this is really creepy how this what we would have adopted as like a coincidence of beautiful language. Allah is trying to send you something. For those who aren't religious, the universe is sending you something. No, that is a weird algorithm that some like nerd wrote in order to sell you TikTok, Tic Tacs or something.
Yeah. You know, also the thing about TikTok, that's because you said TikTok by accident.
Yeah.
But that's an. By the way, didn't we have something recently where we were talking about something and then it popped up? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Was it? Wait, when was this?
I don't remember. It was like a couple weeks ago. But we've gotten
It was
to
like no. It was something. Oh, it was something we were talking about, and then it showed up as an advertisement on our Instagram.
Yeah, there you
remember
go.
that?
We were talking about like razors or something, and we got Dollar Shave Club.
Oh, that's insane. That,
Yeah.
you know that razor advertisement that everyone sees,
Yeah.
that everyone's been seeing recently.
Yeah. Wait, Dollar Shave Club.
No,
Was it Dollar
isn't that the manscaping thing?
Manscaping. That's what it was. Yes,
Manscaping.
it was manscaping.
Yeah.
That showed
Manscaping.
up on our Instagram advertisements literally like 2 minutes after, and we opened up Instagram. It was the first thing that showed up as an advertisement.
And you know what's crazy is
So even in our little microcosm here, something hilarious is you guys are a bit younger than me. I don't get those ads. Isn't that hilarious?
That's
Like when you're saying, like you're just talking about it, like everyone knows
Yeah.
what the ad is. No idea. And I think part of it is I fit a different demographic than you guys.
Exactly.
That's funny because I remember another thing that I get constantly is Lumen. I don't know if you guys get those.
Yeah,
I get
that. I
Nope.
Lumen, and then so I'll talk to people. I'll be like, "Yo, you know that thing that's like, that's like everywhere?"
Uh-huh.
And they're like, most
Only
these
people
guys
our
are
age will
like,
know. Yeah.
like you know what that is,
Yeah.
right? Like you've seen
It's a
ads
skin-
for it,
yeah.
and because we'll see countless ads for it, like non-stop. But most people are just like, "What are you talking about?" Like I've never heard.
No,
of
because
that.
it's targeted. I think the main branding of that thing is like it's targeted to like fight the stigma against men's skincare or something like that. And the ads they have are like teenage dudes, like attractive teenage dudes who are like, oh my god, my skin used to be so bad, but now I use this and look at me now, right? It's like that's their ad market, and like everyone within our demographic has definitely seen it. like before.
That's hilarious. So even in the microcosm of this room,
Yeah.
the demographic difference shows us who's
Yeah, exactly.
which ad is gonna go for who.
That shows that shows what the difference is. As like we received advertisements regarding like razors and like manscaping and all of this, but you don't.
Exactly.
I get it for mattresses.
Our priorities we fit different criteria than different demographics, and that's why like they segregate us and they separate us based on like our interests.
And it's crazy because just a couple years ago, if you were like other listening, people would be like, shut up. What are you
Yeah, you're
talking
crazy.
about?"
Yeah.
Yeah, you're crazy. And now it's like, it's just like, whatever, who cares? Like nobody really like.
But that's the real danger of it, is the amount that it's siloing you, not just from like, so we talk about for a community to be successful and happy, it's constant exchange. That you talk to people who are a different generation than you talk to people who have different interests than you, so you grow as a human being at the end of the day. The dangers of these is it's going to keep you so categorized that you won't ever get to grow, because you never need to be challenged. You never need to like disagree with anyone, and even the products that you use are going to be so tracked.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a big issue. Okay, so like if we're talking about like at the end of the day, if I'm getting Manscaped ads and you're getting mattress ads, we can still connect as human beings.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's not like a big separator. That's not that is not like the ultimate line that people cannot cross and have empathy for each other with. But I was talking to Hamza about this. Hamza Farouk. I might have to bleep his name out if he wants us to. Anyways, we were just talking about how, okay, like right now, the Trump-Biden thing, the presidential race, everyone that I talk to thinks, oh, it's Biden's easily, because everywhere you go, everything you see is like, Trump's an idiot.
Yeah.
Everything that you see is like that, especially with our demographic. But I mean, that's kind of what I saw last time, too. That's kind of what I saw when it was Trump versus Hillary. Yeah. But Trump won. And right now, like, we think that it's like, oh, it's Biden's.
Yeah.
Like, this is Biden's race to win. But
yesterday we were driving down Route 18, and this happens anytime you're in a major city, like we're around a major city, and you drive down to that other part of New Jersey. And there was a giant, like, I think Trump was going to be driving down somewhere because he had a fundraiser in New Jersey. Yeah. So there were these, like, there must have been like 400 people packed into like a tiny street corner with Trump 2020 signs on Route 18, where 18 and 34.
How far away from here?
Like maybe 15-20 minutes.
What?
Yeah,
I just drove down the way right now.
Yeah, like south. So we were going to Seagirt Beach yesterday.
Yeah.
You go down 18 for long enough, and normally it makes you take 95, but because like Trump was going through, they had closed down a bunch of roads. Then
is that why?
Yeah.
Oh my God! I was thinking, why is it making me go this way? But like, all right, fine.
That was it. And there were these people just like I could pull up the intersection if I needed to, but it was just a massive group of just like Trump supporters. And then on the other side, there were like 10-15 people, and they looked like even less than 10-15 because they were all like 10 feet apart, holding up anti-Trump signs. But my sister was like, wow, so this happens here. And she's from Chicago.
Does it happen there?
Yeah, of course it happens. It happens everywhere. But she's more in a major city. So she's in this like Chicago type area where it's politically more homogenous than it is in New Jersey. Yeah. New Jersey was generally considered a purple state. Because the cities.
We have Chris Christie.
The cities lean blue, of course, but majority of New Jersey is like farmland.
We've historically not been a red state for like a long time, right? Like I mean, like when it comes down to like
only
the final
80s. Oh yeah, the final result for presidential elections has almost always been blue.
It has almost always been blue, and.
But for local races, it's been red.
Yeah, because New Jersey is so dense. We basically have every single walk of life here that you need.
Yeah. Well, if you go south a little bit, like so, I was thinking if you go near AC and you go to like the suburbs by
Atlantic
AC,
City, yep, definitely.
Those are Trump territory right there. But I'm really surprised to hear that 15-20 minutes away from here. Yeah. Right? Like that's kind of crazy to me.
It can change really quickly. Just be far away from the city, it can change.
But also there's the whole idea that if you're a Trump supporter around here, you're like
looked down upon.
No, you know that saying that
you need to make yourself known.
Well, yeah, that too. Sorry, I was gonna say that saying that like minorities stick to each other.
Yeah.
So if you're a Trump supporter around here, that might be the case. Where like if you are a Trump supporter, it's because you are very intentionally a Trump supporter. So you're going to those rallies. Whereas someone who's a Biden supporter, I don't know anyone who's like very intentionally a Biden supporter.
I was gonna say that too. Like, I don't want this to come across like I'm super excited. Like, no, I'm not. Like,
yeah, like Biden just kind of fell on your lap, and you. It was like,
our two-party system is so it produces the most bland and annoying candidates every single time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a one-size-fits-all, but doesn't fit anyone well. Like, that's our political system.
For sure. I saw this thing yesterday that was like, by being a centrist, you're avoiding making a political stance. You're avoiding having any empathy for any one side.
That was another thing. We can tie it back in. In the social dilemma, they also talked about how because whenever as mentioned before, like whenever people grow because there's discourse, right? Because there's like disagreement and you talk back and forth, ideas change and stuff. But because there's no longer a need for that and you're kind of fed whatever engages you the most, which is generally the ideas you agree with, people become more, the word they use is polarized. So it's like the data shows that in recent years...
You retreat into your bubble.
Yeah. So the data shows that in recent years, people are more polarized than ever, whether that be like far right or far left. That depends on the person, but they have like a firm stance, and the amount of centrist people is slowly like going down. But like I guess you can look,
but our political system hasn't caught up, right? So I mean, this is weird, but this is actually making an argument that the political system might push people closer to the center than what our other private activities generally are doing, which is pushing us further to the center.
We see that, right? So we see a progressive candidate, like in Democratic Party, we see a progressive candidate in Bernie Sanders, and we see a more centrist, whatever the word is, leaning Biden, right?
Yeah.
And like one of them has establishment support and like all the adults and people going with him, and the other one's like supposed to symbolize the quote unquote revolution and like the people changing all that, right? So, but then we saw who won.
I don't know if we saw who won as much as who was made to win.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. We saw who was made to win.
Yeah. But okay, so the thing is, people. Okay, so I think it's a good thing. Okay, I think the political system will catch up to like the whole polarization, because I think people like AOC are indicative of that. Where like there's these new age, like, also I think AOC is really obnoxious, by the way, but I think she's like indicative of like new age politicians.
That is a controversial statement. You might have to bleep out.
Hey, we're all about controversial statements on Reddit. Yeah. By the way, just a quick side tangent.
If AOC wants to come on the podcast, we'll take her. Yeah.
That would be a dream. But anyways,
we have to check our schedule, but we'll try to make it work.
Dude, we don't get any. We try to make these like titles like a little bit clickbaity. Yeah. You know what I mean? And we try to make them. We don't try to make them a little bit controversial, but they are a little bit controversial. And then we never get any. Dude, we need people fighting us in the comments, man. We need people.
We just need to make a very out loud.
Do not do the bleeds it leads model. Trust me, it does not end well.
With the bleeds that leads model? What's
like
that?
The idea that just reviews will lead anything. People like the idea. You've never heard the term "if it bleeds, it leads"?
No.
Okay, so it's a term that's used in the news cycle of we put the most controversial / the most dramatic things in the headline. So not because it characterizes what the news of that day is, but because it's going to get the most people looking at it. You know how everyone looks at a car crash as you're driving by? Yeah. That same style except with the news. Yeah, that's why it slows down like crazy everywhere. Yeah. But that's the style of like how news functions, and that's what's turned us into this like the world is ending at every single moment.
Wait, if it bleeds, is the bleeding like bleeding or bleeding through the paper because they're using the headlines?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of.
It's probably both.
Well,
so it's the idea that people are going to pay attention to it, and the main reason I say that here is I don't want you guys to do something like that.
You're just kind of joking.
Of course, you're joking out.
Somewhat.
I have a love-hate relationship to podcasts for that very purpose. I think actually you and I have maybe spoken about this in the past.
Have we?
But the idea of a podcast to me is it's a long-form medium, which is cool, and I like that because I like getting into the nuance of a conversation or the nuance of a topic. But the problem is because you're trying to keep people's attention for a longer period of time, and you don't have the appeal of a short visual stimulus, you start trying to make your conversations much more dramatic or much more controversial to make up for that. And not to turn this Quranic at all times, but there is a criticism that Allah will talk about when of the entertainers or the poets, that it says fi kulli wadin, that they will go in every valley. Why? Because they need to stay relevant at all times. And how do you keep staying relevant? By doing things that no one has tried before. So they'll go in every valley. And it was put forward as a defense of the prophets. The prophets won't do that.
Yeah.
Those that speak truth, they won't do that.
They don't need to.
Because and they don't care whether you're listening to them or not listening to them, because you stand for something.
Right,
Versus if your whole point is just to be in the limelight all the time. That's why I think of any celebrity ever. After they're not relevant anymore, they're gonna do something completely quote unquote controversial. I'm not gonna oust myself by necessarily saying which celebrity I'm talking about here, but like what happens when someone was like, they used to be really popular because they were an amazing athlete, and now they do like stupid stuff. Why? Because like, hey, no one's talked about me for 10-15 years.
Well,
wait, who are you talking about?
Don't worry about it. That's the benefit. You can plug in probably like 7 or 8 names into that.
You just gotta say an
statement.
athlete's name. Someone
yes, we're trying to get that tag, but I guess that's just kind of
But that's the idea. You try to be as relevant as possible, or trying to maintain that relevance as much as possible, and that causes you to just like devolve. And I think the biggest example you can see of that is like, who made radio popular again was Howard Stern. And why did he make radio popular? Like, what did he turn radio into? Like disgusting, like debaucherous stuff. Why? Because it's a medium that people had lost interest to. You could only do formal stuff on it. He opened the door to do informal stuff on it. And how did he have to do that? By like inviting porn stars on.
You know, actually, this, you might have something to say about this. Familiar with Daniel Haqiqatjou?
Yes.
I think he's guilty of that right now. I think he's super guilty of that right now. Daniel Haqiqatjou.
Who?
Do you know about this guy?
No.
Wait, seriously? Daniel Haqiqatjou?
When you said that last name,
Am I saying it
Yeah,
right?
You've heard Haqiqatjou. That's fine. That's how it's said. You guys have not heard of Daniel Haqiqatjou?
So
wait. Is this the guy who's calling out the other?
Who's calling out like Omar Suleiman, Yasser Qadi?
I wasn't familiar with the name.
I didn't know the last name.
What he was doing.
I think he's a little guilty of that right now.
I think it's a huge example of that. That to stay relevant, you got to just like call people out.
Wait, can you go over the situation quickly? Because I
actually,
surfaced a little.
So I'm not too over. Do you want to talk about it?
I'll talk about it in the way that there's like a teaching piece.
Okay.
And one thing I'll say about this topic in general is Islamic studies, or the concept of like teaching people about deen, is a huge, noble, like, of course, position that should be selfless. But man, I'm gonna talk about this in a roundabout way. So just in order to not necessarily turn into like a weird like backbiting circle.
If you want us at any point, by the way, to afterwards to cut clips,
I appreciate that. But to teach is noble, but you don't necessarily get a huge following for that. And I think there's something beautiful in that, because it keeps those who are doing it, that the amount of effort that they put in, they're not going to get popularity. So their anonymity is part of their reward, I would say. And that's why some of the most accomplished teachers, you'll find like 10 people at their halaqas, versus sometimes you have like a popular speaker, like 1,000 people showed up for, but the content of that super scholar, people just aren't ready for it, and it doesn't have that appeal to it.
Sheikh Hatem,
Dr. Hatem al-Hajj is the perfect example of that.
He refrains from using social media unless people specifically request him, and they're like, please, and he's like, no, and then eventually he budges, but he particularly...
There's a figure very similar to Dr. Hatem al-Hajj in Chicago. His name is Sheikh Amin, who Sheikh Amin has been a gem in Chicago. He's in charge of Dar al-Qasim, but he's been there for 30 years or so, right? And when he had a halaqah that was just publicly available for like a dozen years or so, and he'd give like 10-15 people. Dr. Umar Farooq Abdullah came to Chicago to be his student, to be Sheikh Amin's student. And when he came in, he's one of the scholars that's known to like have 80 people following him wherever he goes. Suddenly people are like, oh, why did you come here? It's like, because this awesome teacher's here. It's like, him? He's been here forever. He's like, yeah. He's been here forever. No one knew about him. But that's the idea of like people who are super knowledgeable, they typically teach in a fashion that is not sensational. And they're not going to get those huge crowds. But people who want to become popular really quickly, even if they're not qualified, they will talk about topics they have no qualification for. And they will start calling out others in the sense of, what, I'm doing the greater good. Look, I'm this like white knight figure. And you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, how much good did you do? I remember this was not necessarily about Daniel Haqiqatjou, but one of my teachers who had a student who was getting quite big in that moment went up to him and he's like, oh, I read your article about this. I didn't really agree with it, but it was well written. And then he asked the next question of, hey, how many classes of Sirah have you taught? And the kid goes, none. Have you ever taught fiqh? Kid, no. Have you ever taught a Fundamentals of Islam course? No. But you've written 5 articles taking down other people who are teaching these things. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, just be careful. And he said it in the most loving manner ever. He said, just be careful because your legacy cannot be that of a bulldozer. A bulldozer only knows how to tear down. Yep. And when it's your turn for someone to tear you down, you will have no foundation. Yep. And you'll be the easiest to tear down. Right,
and I'm sure, so that's a humongous aspect of it. And another aspect is intentions. Like, if you're constantly, if you're avoiding, doing the more, I guess they're not like strictly more noble always. There can be nobility in like publicly calling out people if done right. There can be, right? But if you're avoiding the more noble, like anonymous things and always jumping to publicly calling out people, it's like you have to question why are you doing that?
So I mean, let's look at figures who have we can observe that they've used a lot of their life to serve, right? So examples of this will be like Dr. Yasser Qadi, right? I would say Sheikh Omar Suleiman is getting there. There's others, but they've spent their entire life, like 20, 30 years just teaching. And I'm talking from places where like no one would show up to now where they have some recognition. Imam Zayd Shakir will be a huge example of this, right? Just the Imam Siraj Wahaj, like the Imam, he was given the title Imam of America. Imam Zayd Shakir to the point where when Muhammad Ali needed someone, his family needed someone to lead his janazah, they chose Imam Zayd Shakir, right? That's how much renown he has. Yeah. I have never heard him take that and put a condemnation of a scholar, of a speaker. Yeah. Is it because he's never come across one? Yeah. No, but because he's got mountains of work behind him, of service behind him. Yeah. Even then he wouldn't take one out. But let's just say he did. Yeah. I still don't think it would take away from his legacy because that's not what he's known for. Yeah. It'd be like, dude, someone had to have done something crazy to earn like an Imam Siraj Wahaj saying don't listen to so and so.
Yeah, for sure.
But when you're someone who, within 3 years, has taken down 15, like da'is to Islam, like you gotta ask yourself, what's going on?
And I was talking to Hamza the other day, and one of the things he was saying was, back in the day, when Shaykh used to call takfir on people, like when they used to we also have non-Muslim viewers, by the way, so. For non-Muslim viewers and for our Muslim viewers who perhaps don't know the term, calling takfir on someone is basically declaring them to be a disbeliever. And when that was done, it was such a thorough process. It was not taken lightly. Like, it was like, multiple scholars for a long, long time, and then it was kind of a decision that was come to.
And the operating clause around that, I'm not sure of the authenticity of this hadith, but I know that it's attributed to the Prophet ﷺ, that the one who is, they didn't, not the term for kafir, but the term for fasiq, someone who is like openly disobeying, either the one who is being called out is a fasiq, or the one who is calling out is the fasiq. So like, yeah, you're basically putting yourself on the line. Yeah. Doing that, and it's just not an appropriate thing to do.
Yeah, I think to summarize that whole Daniel Haqiqatjou thing, I think there was more harm done than good. I think there was very.
Wait, no. So what? Can we hear the specifics of what happened specifically there?
I think what can be said is you're having someone who has an audience of people who are, I think he's got a lot of good work out there talking about modernity and how Muslims are like just becoming tools of a liberal agenda. And I think there's actually a very appropriate content to be produced on that, to the point where people think liberalism is the same thing as Islam. Or that, we already talked about communism a little bit here, right? Yeah. But like this idea that like communist, like Islam and communism are completely compatible with each other. Yeah. One thing I always have to express to young students is Islam by definition is a methodology with a complete framework. if a methodology has a complete framework to comment on every issue, that means it is incompatible with any other full methodology.
Yeah.
Incompatible, to the point. Doesn't mean they can't be congruent at points, but because if that other methodology, unless it is also called Islam, is gonna have parts of that methodology that don't necessarily jive with the Islamic paradigm. So with that said, I think Daniel Haqiqatjou produced a lot of good material on like, hey, Muslims when they deal with topics like feminism, Muslims when they deal with topics like socialism, need to be careful so they don't just become pawns in this big political game. I think he gained a lot of notoriety and appropriate credit for that. So he does good work, mashallah. But on the other front, there is also an element then of anyone who does like pushes forward social justice agendas, we need to be weary of them. And that's been more recently where a lot of his attacks have come from, has been on that same line. That look, with the specific one that came out with Sheikh Omar Suleiman was he took pictures with politicians who support gay rights. He took pictures with politicians who support transgender rights. He's involved in the political system. So he spoke, he was a guest chaplain at the U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
So because of that, look at all of these things that he's doing. That's problematic, and he's pushing forward this weird agenda.
Well, something that you told me once, in a different context was when you publicly maybe like have an event with someone, or when you publicly shake someone's hands or endorse someone, you're not endorsing every single part about them. You're not endorsing every single thing they believe in. For all I know, you know what I mean? Like Zarir could be going home and like I don't know, like peeing on his walls or something. I don't know why that was the first thing that came to mind. But like I don't endorse that, you know what I mean? But does that mean that I'm not going to have him as a co-host on the podcast? Because like, and does that mean that someone can attack me for that? No, you can attack Zarir for that, but you can't necessarily attack me for that.
Yeah, we can separate association from kind of like people's moral standpoint on every single issue. And I think it takes tact to do it, to the point where like we take the prophetic legacy, and I think that's why the Sunnah ends up being the answer to every issue. The Sunnah being, of course, the way of the Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of God be upon him, where he's asked he's commenting much later on in his life, unprompted, of while the Prophet before Islam, before the first revelation was sent to him, he had signed a treaty or a pact with a group of his companions, not his companions at the point, just people in Mecca. No one is Muslim yet, called Hilful Fudul, which literally comes down to it's a pact to protect the weak. So if there was someone who wasn't getting the inheritance that they needed to, if someone cheated them financially, if there were widows and orphans in a society and they needed support, they would be the first people to be called upon to give them aid. And the Prophet said, this is now late in Medina, if such a pact was being signed again, I'd be the first one on it. And this was with other people who were on this pact were like complete idolaters, not just people who were like doing idolatry, but were behind the idolatry of Mecca.
Right.
But they were involved in a good cause in that moment, so it was appropriate to join them.
Exactly, and the Prophet didn't endorse that aspect of them.
Not, yeah.
Like, you know, that obviously, like, he didn't endorse that aspect of him. So when you, and it's also like foolish to have that. First of all, it's foolish to like call someone out for someone like that, for something like that. I think that's where like Daniel Haqiqatjou went wrong. I also think it's foolish to think that something like that should never happen. Like Imam Omar Suleiman and various other imams. Okay, this also happens on the other side. Like I remember there was one imam that got some backlash for meeting with Donald Trump, and that one was like I think these were two different groups of people. The people that say that Daniel Haqiqatjou is in the wrong are also the same ones that kind of say that one sheikh was in the wrong for meeting Donald Trump. I don't know, is what I'm saying.
So I think the truth is in the details here. Yeah. If you're referring to the imam who did the dude who did the opening prayer, are you talking about him?
No, I actually had no idea who it was.
That dude friended me on Facebook.
Really? No way.
This is right after the Republican National Convention. I don't want to misquote his name, but the bald guy who did.
No.
Yeah, so it was hilarious right afterward.
Oh, that
It's
one.
like, God bless Donald
one,
Trump.
Oh, the one. The one that was holding the Muslims for Trump and he was
Yeah.
certified to have.
Yeah, that's
not
it.
him.
I thought you were talking about him. I was like, dude, that's a complete different
No.
case there.
Why would he defend you?
Wait, how did that happen?
I don't know. How does anything happen on Facebook?
Yeah, that's true.
I was thinking about what I was talking about was not that. It was there was like a very popular imam with some traction behind him.
Oh, I know who
So-
you're talking about. Okay, got it.
I honestly, I'm not saying the name because I'm trying to cover it up. I don't remember who it was.
Oh, well, let's talk about Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. Right?
Yeah, okay.
Sheikh
I think
Hamza
that
Yusuf was placed on Trump's religious advisory committee.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of backlash there, like how could you do that? And I think it's just an interesting point of conversation, and this is where people's intentions really and their life's work have to be looked into, and not just that decision or the optics of what that political decision really looks like.
Yeah, and to some degree, what I was gonna say before is it's nuanced because, okay, like we said before, like we said in the Imam Omar Suleiman thing, he's not endorsing everything that person is saying. I think some people on one side agree with that, but then they'll criticize Sheikh Hamza Yusuf for the same thing. What I say is, do we as Muslims want to avoid all interaction with anyone and have no standing at all in the country? Because that's an element too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think, and this gets into the bigger conversation around the role of religion or demographics in a two-party system. I think Muslims should be like, this is going to sound weird, but like oddballs. And what I mean by that is like, we're not beholden to just one political party.
Yeah,
and we
absolutely.
never should be, or else you lose all political power.
Yeah.
In local races, there are times to support Republican candidates.
Yeah.
Because it makes more sense. It's they're for laws or they're for policies in a specific range that might be beneficial.
Yeah.
And in other fronts, it's for the Democrats. And other times, it's going to be for libertarians, for independents, whatever the case may be. That way, that you're a creative minority that has some degree of like, it stands for principles. It doesn't just stand for like on political lines.
Right. Exactly. And I think we have trouble doing that sometimes. I think one party thinks they just have us. They just have us.
Yeah, they just have to say. They just have to say inshallah, right?
Yeah, there you go.
An inappropriate use of the term inshallah, and suddenly you're like, Biden understands us.
But you know
He understands the Muslim idea of when we say inshallah, we mean never. That's so wrong. That's not what God willing was supposed to ever mean.
Yeah.
But you just fall like right into it. No, your policies still matter. Like, you can't be for drone strikes that are killing hundreds of Muslims every year, and say inshallah and everything is fine. Muslims just fall into your pocket.
Yeah, and the thing is, they know they have us. What I'm interested in thinking about is, let's say, because I always thought, when I heard that immediately, I was like, oh, Biden's gonna get some backlash for this, but the opposite happened. He didn't get backlash. He got more support.
I was just when I saw it, I was just in awe that the meme has gone beyond the Muslim community.
Yeah.
The other people know it too. I was like, wait, what?
I actually thought he said in July.
I feel like when he said, it sounds more like in July than inshallah.
Is that actually?
He said inshallah. Inshallah. That's what
Yeah.
That sounds more like in July.
No, but you can't expect Joe Biden
Did he
to be like,
confirm
inshallah.
Exactly right.
Yeah, his campaign manager apparently said like that was intentional, and he did say inshallah. Like that was like a briefing word.
So that's the thing. So like, obviously like we say that like amongst friends or stuff. Like when my mom said, if I asked my mom, will you give me this? She's like, yeah, inshallah, yeah. I'm like, all right, that means you're never gonna get it, or like something like that. Like
as much as I still disagree, I understand it.
Yeah, but like then when he said it on stage, at first I was just in denial. I'm like, there's no way he also gets what I feel like.
Yeah. Well, these things are planned out, especially like 2 weeks beforehand, he had his ringtone to be some like some Latin American singer. It's like, this is who I have as my ringtone. I was like, dude, that's such pandering.
Wait, do you know what he did? It was so tone deaf.
dancing.
Oh my god, this guy is he's so funny because he's so tone deaf, and he like at every opportunity to be an idiot, like he jumps on the opportunity. He went. He was with a Hispanic crowd, and he was like, check out this little thing I got on my phone. Now you might expect La Bamba. La Bamba is like a very famous like old Hispanic song. That's something that is like Hispanic culture. You might expect whatever. He picked probably the first thing that he could find that had anything that sounded Hispanic.
Yeah.
It was Despacito, and he played it.
Because that's like the most Americanized, like, that's the song that everyone knows. It's not really like a specific Hispanic thing, you know?
I just saw it, but like, dude, that's to me, that was the equivalent of like, let's just put a sombrero on it.
So what was the thing that Trump did? Like Cinco de Mayo, you know what I'm talking about? And he took a picture with a thumbs up inside his tower with the food.
Oh, he had like a Taco Bell, like something like that.
That was basically that.
Yeah, it's the same moment. It's so disingenuous and weird. But that's what I would hate for us to turn into. And unfortunately, I see that happening. That the Muslim community is like, oh, he said inshallah. And these things are planned out. Actually, I think sometimes it's done with tact and done well. When Obama in his first term went to Egypt, he read "Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq," right? And he said like the first words real to the Prophet Muhammad was, and then he said "Iqra." And I remember I had to give a khutbah the week afterward, and the point that I focused on was more, and this is also, don't ever do this as a khatib. Don't shame grenade your congregation. To any young person who's ever giving a khutbah or addressing, don't shame grenade.
Shame grenade.
So younger me who was terrible, so just throwing that out there. Not that I've gotten much better, but I remember the next week giving the khutbah and being like, dude, the president of the United States has better tajweed than most of us. Tajweed is proper recitation of the Quran. And of course, there had to be like a bunch of advisors who are like, no, you got to say it properly. And I can appreciate that was done. That came across as more genuine than like...
It was pretty genuine. But at the end of the day, it is one of those things where like, we got to look past... it's hard to look past charisma sometimes. Charisma is a really good, strong force. And I think it's super necessary. I think I hear a lot of people say that we should focus only on policies. I think charisma is a strong thing, but you have to be able to look at what's behind the charisma, and because what's behind the charisma is essentially the meat, and then the charisma will inspire people, will drive, influence people.
So I agree with you. I think charisma can get weaponized if it's disingenuous. But on the other front, charisma is important because it's amongst the only tools we have to really judge whether someone's paying attention to us, whether someone cares about us. So when we say, no, we don't even look at that, we're just going to look at the content, that's problematic because we've never been people that speak with just content. Our nonverbal communication is typically what we're talking about when we're talking about charisma. That's important.
Exactly.
And there is an appeal. I don't want to completely throw like... Biden does have like that geeky like... Hi, Frank, white guy. That like, that like is just like that innocent thing, and I think there's an appeal to that. But you could tell that it's been told, "Hey, you need to say this word. Hey, make sure this crowd needs to be appraised. So make sure that you mention these buzzwords or something." At that point, it's just like the political system becomes so apparent that charisma was just fake.
Yeah, and I think so. Okay, so for a lot of people, there's certain issues that are just like you can't be convinced otherwise, and so for those people, like maybe the decision between Donald Trump and Joe Biden doesn't come down to charisma almost at all, but there's a lot of people that don't have issues that are like, oh, like this is extremely important, this is where I draw the line, and so at that point, I think just the way it is Donald Trump is someone who has more of that natural charisma, and I think that's where Joe Biden kind of loses it. I think that charisma is weaponized. I think that charisma is something that has bad flesh to it behind it, but I think it's there. I would say it's there.
I don't know if it's charisma is the right word, but I'm trying to think because
social intelligence.
It's not.
Those are kind of the same.
It's not like charisma. Anytime you mention charisma on the podcast, I always think of Don Draper. Have you seen Mad Men?
No, I have not. Who's Don Draper?
He's the main character.
He's the main character.
Oh. Is he like? I think I've seen him in stuff before though.
He's John Hamm. Do you know the actor John Hamm?
Do you remember when I was trying to look like this guy for a long time?
He always asks.
That's such a weird.
He asked everyone.
I think I asked you.
He asked everyone, "Do I look like Don Draper?" Like everyone.
I would show people pictures. I feel like I've shown you one, and I'm like, I'm trying to look. Like
I'm kind of glad you didn't do that.
Okay, so Don Draper's main thing is that he always knows. He always knows. So this goes with charisma, right? You know how to compose yourself. You know how to talk. You know how to take control of a room. People listen to you, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to say that.
That's a type of charisma.
But like I feel like those are like.
I've seen those YouTube's videos online where people try to teach it. It's like your body language, control it to the point of always know where the exit is, and there's all of that. When it's taught in that way, it's kind of creepy because that's when I get into like weaponizing charisma.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be something that naturally flowed from you. I'm a huge fan of prophetic. There's an awesome book called "With Heart in Mind: The Emotional Intelligence of the Prophet," written by Mikael Smith. It's a really good book. I highly recommend it. And he goes over how he would compose himself, how you'd see his palms all the time when he spoke. Mm-hmm. And they're like these elements of like what you see in these YouTube videos, like how to be charismatic, and they analyze. That's why I think I know who you're talking about, because they did a video on.
Yeah, I think.
On like so probably for sure. Yeah.
He was the example. Like he always has like how he moves stuff around, how he spreads himself out on a couch, that type of stuff.
I have a problem with those videos, and I think it's this. But going back real quick to the point that I was making, I think that's a type of charisma. I think the type of charisma Donald Trump has is, okay, say what you will about him, he's a funny guy. He can be funny.
No, my point was, I don't think the thing that Trump has that like attracts people is I think he knows very well how to like control a crowd.
Wouldn't you say that's charisma to a certain extent?
But like, I don't want to use the word
for better or for worse. If we're being objective about that, I think that's charisma. It's
more like fear-inducing.
Trevor Noah had an interesting. This was way back when he was still a candidate, and he said Donald Trump is a stand-up comedian. Like he knows how to control a crowd, just as stand-up comedians eventually end up knowing how to do that. And I think that speaks to it. And like stand-up comedians do that. They play with your emotions as in the middle of a speech. Yeah. He does that very well. So there's no denying that there's value to it. And also I think those of us who, myself included, presented him as being dumb all the time. Yeah. You can't be dumb and get your way. I mean, that could happen if there's like a huge deep state stuff where like they control everything and they spin the narrative every single time. But I think on the other front, you can't just
that happens with Joe Biden a little bit.
Yeah. That's true too. We could just be dealing with two extremely senile old men, and their teams are the ones who are behind everything that we see. So that could be happening. I'm not saying it's not, but you can't. Like those are calculated fails. What we see as fails are calculated fails that still get him a following every single time. Like that shoots someone on Fifth Avenue and I wouldn't lose a single supporter. Like for some people that line was like, aha, look, he it gained him followers. For others it's like, dude, he's just saying he would commit a crime and no one would do anything to it. Yeah.
And we only heard like, oh my God, Trump. Okay, like. What's it called? Rightfully so. We heard like, oh, that's like a lot of things when Trump says them. We're like, that's a really bad thing to do, and we only hear that. We only exist in our bubble. But there is most of the country, I would say, maybe not most, half of the country that hears, wow, Donald Trump is someone who doesn't hold back, is willing to say what he wants to say, knows he has our support, is confident, whatever. And the thing is, I think we just think Donald Trump is going to lose, but I don't know.
I don't think
he's.
So like I saw a funny thing the other day. It was like on Reddit or something where the post was like, the polls show Joe Biden is up 16 points or something, and the top comment was, "This is what happened." I said it had a lot of like curse words in it, so I'm gonna dumb it down. But it was basically like, "This is what happened last time. Let's not repeat the same thing." And I don't want to see another one of these posts because it was like a liberal. Subreddit.
Was this Reddit, by the way?
Yeah.
All subreddits are liberal subreddits, but yeah.
No.
That's not necessarily true, but it's a good point overall. Like, I think we're gonna fall into that because again we're so isolated in our bubbles that dude, only people responding to polls.
Yeah.
Are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What's that thing? What's that thing? There's some phenomenon. You know what I'm talking about?
The Dunning-Kruger effect? Is that what you're talking about?
Dunning-Kruger? No, not that one. There's the one with like the
Butterfly effect. That's the only effect I know.
Probably definitely
That's
not.
it. The one where like okay, so these guys came back with helmets. These
Time
these
travel.
No. I'm just saying. You have no idea what I'm getting.
I'm spitting ideas.
It's like the guy in charades who, before they draw anything, it's just like
spits
naming
out
stuff.
all the possible things. The thing with like the World War II, the troops came back and they all had headaches, and they thought that there was something wrong with the helmets because they all had headaches. But what they didn't realize is that the reason that they had headaches were in fact because the helmets were working because they were still alive, but they came back and they had headaches, so they thought there was something wrong with it. You get what I'm saying? Because if there was something actually wrong with the helmets,
They would have been dead.
they would have been dead. But the thing is, the bullets like bang, and then ricocheted off or something, and they had headaches. But the helmets worked. I forgot what point I was making.
I've
But
never
why is
heard
that?
of this, but that's interesting.
No, wait, so how did the helmets work if they still have headaches then? It didn't work.
No, they're not dead.
Yeah, they're
I see what you
It
mean.
works.
I see what you mean. It works
No,
to an
it
extent,
worked, yeah.
but I think I know what you're referring to here.
Yeah, I think it was a long one. I think it was like a round, a very.
It's this idea that its primary purpose works, and
Yeah.
all people focus on is the small bug, not
Yeah.
recognizing that the reason we don't call it successful is because
Yeah.
those that are reported being completely unsuccessful for its
yeah.
primary purpose would be dead.
Exactly.
Wait,
exactly.
yeah, now I also know what we're talking about. I know the name.
I forgot what the effect is, or like that also happened with like helicopters and like helicopters coming back with defects, but those were people that came out alive. This was a really roundabout way of me saying that the only people that were gonna vote in those polls were the ones.
It's some
that-
sort of bias. I forgot what it is.
Yeah.
Like
Traditional
instinct
polling
bias
just
or
That's
doesn't.
the
something?
one. It's
Yeah,
called something bias.
yeah. Traditional polling just doesn't work anymore because
Yeah.
most of them are based on landlines anyway. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
Landlines, like your house phones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if you ever look at like Quinnipiac University, it's actually pretty close to here. It's I wouldn't recommend going there first. Rutgers, okay, but I would recommend going there because like all you ever hear about if you ever Google Quinnipiac is their polls, because that's what they actually do is they just have people like calling up landlines asking about stuff. It's one of the most reputable polls in the country, but if you look at their methodology papers, it's terrible. You're like, how many of you have a landline?
I have one.
Back at home, yeah, not here.
Do you use it? Would it represent your views on anything?
If someone called, they would not pick it up on the landline.
You see my
If
point?
my
Like,
grandma picks up the phone and they're like, "Hello, we're just wondering who are you voting for?" She like instant hang up. You're not getting anywhere with that.
yeah, dude, I haven't had a landline in like 12 years.
Yeah. You don't need one.
Yeah,
What's the point? Like, we have one at Silru, and like it's always the New Brunswick Fire
Yeah.
Fire Department is like, can you support us? And yes, we do support them because it's good to support public services. But like that's it. So like we never pick it up.
Yeah.
But
There's no point
that's
to it.
where that's the primary source that polls use
Yeah.
is landlines.
Yeah.
How reliable is that going to be to represent the day-to-day changes that people have after they watched a TV show
Yeah.
or after they watch something online or an ad that they
Exactly.
got?
Do you think that those things actually swing
I think
people's
they,
decisions?
I think
Reports
they-
about polling swings people's decisions more than the polling is accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't think I think the landline stuff. I think that used to work. I think that used to work when
So
people.
that's just
were,
another
like-
example of how the system is behind
Yeah.
the way of society now.
Also, have you guys seen the VP debate? I haven't seen it. I
Yeah.
didn't see it.
That's
But-
I didn't see it.
the fly won the debate.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
I was so bothered the entire time. I really wanted to leave. If I see a fly, I want to kill it. I don't know if that's bad.
Okay,
You should cut it
yeah.
out if
No,
it's
no.
bad.
I think
but-
that's like a normal human reaction to a fly.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
You just
Okay,
wanna
yeah.
kill a fly.
I don't know. Some people would be offended. Whatever.
People would be offended.
But like, especially the contrast with his white hair and the black fly just pissed me off a lot. Like I couldn't stare at the screen. So
What you need to know about the debate is like, dude, the fly was able to steal people's attention.
Yeah.
That's how different it was than the one before. That people were
Yeah.
all just like, dude, it was obnoxious. They didn't have it, much of that.
Yeah.
Was policy discussed? Yeah, to an extent.
but it's the same boring question. Like nothing. Nothing happens.
What if it was a robotic fly and it was playing on his head?
That's a.
Grab people's attention away from the debate.
We can.
What if it was CGI and it wasn't there the whole time?
Oh my god! This is our clickbait.
Yeah, don't you think that the host would have said something? Like,
I don't think you could see it from that far away.
No, I don't think the host would have said anything either. Like,
Wait, don't the hosts have a screen
yeah, but I don't think
No.
they
to
would
see the
Do they?
people's faces?
Yeah, I'm
I
sure they
think
do.
that's how it works.
I think they
No,
do.
because they're all right there. Like I'm here, they're over there. They're.
Oh wait,
yeah,
no,
the
they're
host is
there.
in the middle, and then they're on each side.
Okay.
They're in the same room.
Yeah, so maybe they didn't see it.
They're in the same. But
No, and you would be able to see it. He's white. He's the
Probably.
whitest thing.
Just one big
Probably the producers and everyone saw it and they're panicking like behind the thing. But I don't think I'm pretty sure Kamala Harris doesn't give a damn. And then like the host was just like, "Get me out of here."
Yeah.
And then Pence obviously didn't notice. So
I don't think that.
The whole point, I don't care about the fly, and I know all the memes are like, "Hey, what does the fly go to? Garbage, ha ha ha." Like, so they had all
no,
those
you
stupid
have to
memes.
admit that was irony. Like
Yeah.
when he was talking about the lack of like some bias, implicit bias. I think that's the word.
Sure.
So, yeah, we'll go with that. The lack of the he's basically saying that police people are fair all the time and there is no bias there. And like at that moment when he's making that point, the fly lands. So I've seen so many memes and commentaries on how like flies that his point is a complete POS.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Dude, this is like the Bernie Sanders thing. Oh, that little bird came and like sat on the Sanders thing.
Yeah.
Like
It's like the opposite.
It's a sign.
it's a sign. You religious people.
They're sending signs.
The universe is telling me something.
But that's how uneventful it was. I mean, a couple of things that got out of it is Kamala Harris completely abandoned her platform and went straight forward on Biden's because like stuff that she was never for, now she's for.
So
like she was anti-fracking for a long time, and now she's just like, I like fracking. It's like,
Oh yeah.
But you know what? Everyone I know is gonna end up looking past that.
No,
Everyone I know is
the
gonna
thing that I don't get, that I'm pretty sure Kamala Harris, out of all the people on the debate stage, hated Joe Biden the most. Wasn't the whole thing with the busing and the like? She had a whole spiel, straight up story for 2 minutes, primetime debate. 3 months later, I'm proud to announce that I've joined the Joe Biden ticket to the White House. I'm just like, huh? Like, dude, but why?
that's how politics works, right?
And you know what?
A midnight call was made when Buttigieg dropped out, and that everyone else needs to fall in line and go behind Biden.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? It's not gonna make a difference. I promise you, nobody I follow, nobody within my circle, nobody in this community. I don't think. You know how Donald Trump said that thing that he could shoot some guy on.
Yeah, that's why in this case I don't think it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Like with all of my criticisms to how I think this is like a terrible ticket, like who are you gonna vote for? I'm like, I'm not voting for Trump. Like,
Exactly.
That's not happening.
The
Like,
saying is settle for Biden.
Yeah,
So,
settle for Biden is like really.
Yeah.
And I think that's a
that's
great
going
one.
around.
Yeah.
And I also like that the whole fly thing. Like you know how you were saying. By the way, after this, we can take a break from Mugger, but then we'll come back.
Yeah.
But also, the fly thing that you were saying, how it took away from like the whole. It took away from stuff that they were talking about, like that thing that you just said. I didn't hear about that until today, because nobody talked about it.
Yeah.
Right? All I saw was
The
freaking
fly memes, right?
everywhere.
yeah.
But Joe Biden did play the game afterwards. He played made a post with like a fly swatter, and I'm glad he did that because it showed me that he has a little bit of charisma, and I kind of like that. I kind of like that he played the game, and it makes him just a more personable dude.
I gotta ask the question though. Do you believe he made the post?
No, I don't think he knows how to use Twitter.
Nah.
I don't think he knows how to. I don't think
No.
anyone uses their own Twitter except for Trump.
So the reason I capture that is like we're so used to these mechanized things like Biden did that. Dude, I guarantee you there's some intern.
Yeah.
We're just like, it'd be cool, fly swatter hat. Like, I guarantee you that's what's happening. And we just let it go because we're like, no, that's just how things are done now. But like, but are we voting for that intern right now?
Yeah.
Or who are we voting for? So like, it doesn't make any sense. This isn't a meritocracy the way it's supposed to be. If we're talking about this being a meritocracy, who's most capable of it, we're typically voting for teams.
Yeah.
That's what this is. Either we should make that clearly apparent, or we should recognize that this is a broken system. Like,
Yeah. I think I think that's true. I think the Joe Biden thing, to like some degree, I guess like since he is the top, he had to like approve of it, and therefore like maybe there's some.
Yeah, I was gonna say the argument could be that he technically approved the post, so therefore
he gets credit for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, but still, like how.
But this is where in the moment stuff matters more, and I think part of me could be like I'm from Illinois, like so like. And not that I think Obama did an amazing, like, there's many criticisms to be had everywhere, but I think that's one of the things that you saw in previous situations. Either the smokescreen was hidden way further, or like when he would do something on the fly, you wouldn't expect an intern told him to do it, or like happened. But it was shown off as like he had that emotional intelligence, like in the middle of a speech to stop. To think about something on the fly that we don't necessarily give to the two people who are on there right now.
Well, to be honest, I think Donald Trump can do that. Like, I'm trying to be objective here. I think he can be an on-the-fly person.
That's malarkey, though.
I think it's possible, right? I think that's valid. I think regardless of what you want to say about him, he's someone. I mean, we just said it before. He's a stand-up comedian. Stand-up comedians.
I think like the whole point is you need to have like wit and emotional intelligence to make those comebacks. I don't think Trump can do that. I just think that Trump has less, for lack of a better word, shame. So he just doesn't give a damn, and he will just speak his mind. But I don't think that mind is very witty or intelligent to make up.
But what's even more problematic than that, and this might be a good place to conclude, is like our elections are going to be won even on wit and stuff more than like moral fortitude.
Yeah.
Like
I don't understand.
I can't remember the last time we're like we should choose him because he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Like that's not it. Like no one ever votes for someone because of that.
That's the biggest hypocrisy of the Republican Party.
I think Mitt Romney was like the closest we ever got to people making that case. I'm not saying he was a good. People were like, he's a good family man.
Yeah, he adopted like 7 children or something like that. Yeah, so there was a bit of that at least.
No, but Trump has the Republican Party. They're supposed to be evangelical, Christian, family matters, blah, 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 everything. And then this man is the guy with 3 wives, different children from all the marriages, slept with like adult actresses, which is proven and all that, says words left and right. And this is the man that supported the Republican Party. Like, I don't understand why they continue to do that or ever even agreed with that.
Because
like,
God works through broken men, brother.
There you go.
That's like the thing that pisses me off the most.
Well, I guess.
What's up? Your laptop's about to die.
Oh, okay. Well then, this is a good place to take a break.
So before.
I'm not gonna get used to that.
it's just funny every time, but. Also, they don't hear the part that we do that because we cut that part out. That's the point. So you should be clear. Start with you.
And we're gonna have a 2-part, like, and it's just gonna be
But all right,
before we started recording the podcast, we had an interesting conversation. I think relating to different things. So maybe we want to continue on that path because the first half was I don't want to say heavy, but it was more on a serious note.
Yeah.
And you had a Chaplain Hat on and everything, and you were talking from a very professional perspective. But let's have some fun.
It's sometimes hard to take the Chaplain hat off.
Yeah. Hopefully now it'll be easier.
I have a question. We'll go to what you're saying. Like sometimes when you're hanging with us and we're eating food and stuff like that, is your Chaplain hat like ever off with us? Like with because sometimes I think sometimes. I think I've had a lot of opportunities to be with you, and I think your Chaplain hat is like it's like off, and like you and I can have like a genuine interaction, but when you're with like a crowd of guys, does that Chaplain hat ever come off?
So, I mean, we can go as deep or as shallow as we want with this question. I think part of the question comes down, I still haven't figured out whether, like, the title of a chaplain, or let's just use the title, if we chaplain in a secular institute or like Imam, whether that's really a title or is it a proficiency? That I can say yes, it goes off where when I'm in a professional mode and I'm seeing someone for the first time, it's very little about me trying to understand where they're coming from, how to leave them in, hopefully, inshallah, in a better state than I found them. Yeah. Right? Yeah. That's usually the point, that everyone's on a path somewhere and you're trying to clear their path just a little bit. That's chaplaincy in a nutshell. And you're more active about it maybe the first time you see someone. And in a crowd, what you have to do is actually the opposite. My typical thing is I don't want to harm anyone. Right? And that's really easy to do in a group setting.
Yeah.
So on that front, no, that never comes off. But am I trying to work them towards something? Am I trying to like understand them at a deeper level or help them understand themselves at a deeper level? Like that? No, usually no.
No. Because what ends up happening is, I think you kind of said this, is like, one time we went to like AKG. I don't know, you might have been there. One time we went to AKG like after Jummah. I just remember people were like asking you like, like asking you questions. Like, Afghan kebab grill?
Yeah.
Afghan kebab grill. Before
I
someone.
call it Afghan. What's
Bro,
that?
I was like, wait a second.
Well, that's just what everyone calls it. But
Yeah.
I know someone's gonna say something about that. But yeah, people were like asking you like thick questions, and I'm like, just let the man eat. Just let him eat.
Yeah, so that'll happen, and
Yeah.
at times I'll even call it out. I was like, guys, not now. Stop asking me about like, does my wudu count if I did it without leather socks? Like, stop.
That's probably the one of the most frequent questions you get, right? How many times have you gotten that question?
I don't even
Wait,
know.
what's the answer to that question?
I'm not answering that right now.
How many times do you like?
They make leather socks?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Okay.
And you can, the whole point is you can make wudu over them.
I did not know those things. All right.
Have you ever owned a pair?
I have a bunch. I have different
Are
colors.
they comfortable?
Depends on who makes them, but pleather socks are generally more comfortable than leather socks.
Pleather?
Leather. It's like plastic leather.
Plastic leather.
Plaid leather. That would be a thing.
I thought it was
To be honest, I
plushy
don't know what plaid
leather.
is.
So I thought it was like some soft...
No, it's a little bit softer because it's like plastic leather,
Yeah.
so it's a bit softer than actual one. I have a white pair of them.
Plastic leather. I thought leather's cowhide.
So like what we're sitting on right now is actual leather, but most cars that you sit in, they don't use genuine leather. It's got that scent that
It's-
never
yeah,
goes
it's like
away.
a-
It's like that plasticky
yeah.
material. Cheap cars use it terribly. So if you're like in a Honda, that's it's like canvas.
Yeah.
That's not it. But if you're in like a higher end car, the leather they use is usually not real leather. It's like pleather.
Pleather. I'll take a note
That's
of
a
that.
new word I just learned.
I'll take a note of that. But yeah, so like do you ever just sit there? Because alright, like sometimes like I'll have interactions with some of my friends, right? And I'll just they're being an idiot sometimes. I'll just be like, dude, like stop talking to me, right? Sometimes I know to some extent you probably want to do that as a chaplain sometimes, but you kind of can't.
Can you talk about that? Like, what's your most ridiculous experience you've had with someone asking a question?
The thing is, they might watch the podcast. So
Yeah,
be vague.
that is a possibility. But to be honest, though, no. To answer that question, I
No?
don't really feel like that.
never.
No. Like, there are times in which I will know because I am annoyed that I'm feeling a certain way, and that you have to control because it's more about me
Yeah.
than it's about them. But, like, people genuinely, even when they're goofing around, that's usually meeting a real need that they have.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, like interacting with them doesn't turn into just like the problem is my own.
Yeah.
When like I can't stand them, that might be my own issue of like, dude, am I not rested enough for this conversation? Am I not rested enough to be present right now? And at that moment, you have to check yourself and be like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't necessarily delve as deeply as they want to go.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So it's not the answer I was expecting.
Yeah. I just want to like.
I mean,
story,
do you-
like, one time this.
I want to hear something.
Because I mean, I think that's one of the major differences between chaplaincy and like just being a Q&A forum.
Yeah.
My goal is not to get people information.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that people make a mistake of, is like that they think that the role of a counselor is I ask you a question and you give me the answer.
Yeah.
There are times in which I've had that in my head where I could give you the answer and I could probably solve 80% of your life's problems right now.
Yeah.
But that's not the point, because even if I was to do that, you'd still fall in the same situation again.
Yeah.
Because the point was never for anyone to tell you how to do things. It's for you to learn how to be a more competent human being at the end of the day.
And for you to help them build those avenues to
Yeah.
where that they can. That's kind of what Daniel Khan was saying
Yeah,
last week.
I
He was
was
like,
gonna say
that's like the essence of being a therapist. Is you're not. It's like the whole fisherman thing. What's that?
Yeah, it's like
saying?
you teach a man to...
Yeah, teach a man to fish.
Fish.
You taught him for life. I paraphrased it quite a bit, but yeah.
Exactly.
Like, if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. If you teach a man a fish, he eats for his life. Something like that.
Yeah.
There you go.
And there's a darker side to that, though, at least in the form of counseling. Because if I feel like I know the answer and it's not with them, like, dude, there's a weird superiority complex there. I do not know how to serve the person in front of me more than they know. So anytime I feel like that, I actually have to check myself and be even more scared that I'm pushing them to a direction. Because like, I don't know what you need more than you do.
Yeah.
What I'm supposed to have is a skill set to ask you the right questions and encourage you to the right behavior that makes you understand and go the direction that you want to go.
Yeah.
And the typical analogy I like using is actually a prophetic analogy, where there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that says the weakest of Iman is to pick off trash from the street, right? And I usually like connecting that to the narration of the Prophet ﷺ saying that like there are many narrations that talk about living life as a traveler. And the way I see it is what you're supposed to do in a therapeutic conversation is someone is telling you about their path.
Yeah.
You're just trying to pick off a small obstacle. Sometimes you pick off just like that like Cheetos bag that's sitting on the road. Other times there's like a giant tree log that you both move out together. Yeah. But it was never your path to begin with. It was always theirs.
And you keep them on their path, and you try. It's probably really hard because, I mean, we all have our own path, and we all think our path is the right one. Yeah. So you probably have to really be cognizant of like, I'm not trying to bring this guy into my path. I'm trying to just keep.
Yeah, and that's hard. And at certain times, that's the nuance of that becomes difficult because sometimes people want to go down a path that maybe religiously would be harmful for them. And those are times in which a little bit of intervention from my side is, I will put it in, but I have to be really careful that I'm not making a value statement or a judgment and trying to take them in a place that they don't want to go.
Right, for sure.
How do all, like, Daniel Kahn last week was a therapist almost in training. He said not to call him.
He's an MSW, so he told you probably not to.
Call him. He's almost there. Well, basically,
he's a social worker. He's not that's true. He's not a psychologist or a psychotherapist just yet, but he is a social worker.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying that you guys echoed the same, almost to the T, like the same values when it comes to like helping other people, right? Like guiding them along their own path rather than enforcing your own thing on it. Yeah. Like, how do you get that knowledge? Is there like chaplain training, like similar to the therapist training, or do you just come across some experience or something? You mess up and learn.
Yes, definitely that. You mess up and learn all the time. But this gets back to the first question was, I don't know if a chaplaincy is a proficiency or a personality. That's another part of this. Is some of it is it's just people with the same personality tend to go into this career path because they've been doing this for their families, their communities so long. Might as well get some knowledge or some theory behind it. There's going to be part of that. It's just part of the personality that someone was kind of born into. Yeah. And then on the other side, you learn case studies. And part of the reason why we probably speak from a similar place is we probably studied the same psychological theories. So I'm going to assume that he's read a couple of books by Capps. He's read the Edwards or the Rogerian approach to counseling, and they'll teach this type of stuff too. Okay. But there is an element of your own personality. There are counselors that can have very, very different styles, but there will be certain things that the field has agreed on are best practices to use and certain practices to completely omit.
Yeah. Do you read the Brothers group chat at all?
I'm not on the Brothers group chat.
You're not?
I don't think so.
Wait, aren't you supposed to?
No, he is. No, you are.
Wait, the one in group
Definitely
the group me. Oh yeah. Oh wait, I might be. Yeah, I'm on that chat. Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry. I remember the year my sophomore year was when I was kind of in charge of that group chat, and that was the first year you were on it, I think. Mm-hmm. And the vibes changed a lot. So
I heard about that. And that's when I started becoming a lot less active because of that.
Yeah. Wait, what do you mean?
Did the vibes change for the better or?
For the better.
Okay.
Well, people were just. People weren't
for the better, yeah, but like, was it more enjoyable?
But it was.
I hate to be like haram police by presence.
Well, I think it's not like, I don't think it's because anyone thinks that you will say something to them. It's just because everyone just has a lot of respect for you, and I think it's like it ends up like being a good thing for the group chat. But I was gonna ask, like, is it more difficult to have like a genuine connection with your students sometimes? Because obviously, for example, you and I respect you a lot, but I'm still like able to have like a genuine interaction with you. But for a lot of people, respect can sometimes get in the way of a genuine interaction.
It really is a give and take, and I've thought about this a lot because certain times it opens a door where I would never have connected with someone, but I connect with them because of my title. right?
Okay.
There will be so many people that walk into an office who like I will never have had this conversation,
Yeah.
but because I have the role of being a counselor of a chaplain, I will have that opportunity. But on the other front, there is some limitation that comes across. There will be people who maybe would just chill with me on a normal basis, but because I wear this hat, I can't necessarily do that.
I see.
And that's one of the reasons why the much more social events, I actually made an active effort my first couple of years not to attend them, because I would attend and I would see that people were they started changing their behavior. And also there were specific scenarios where I knew too much. Like walking into a gathering, I'd interacted with so many people there that I was like, I'm not uncomfortable because I've got training of how to go around that, but I could see people are suddenly like, oh, he's here. Oh no, he knows this. I told him this.
Yeah.
And I could see that those mental gymnastics happening in their head. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just kind of keep away.
Yeah, like people probably come up to you and they're like, "Oh, I'm trying to marry so and so girl," and then they're like, "I can't be seen with someone."
Yeah, that'll happen at times. Sometimes there's those things. Other times there's even much more serious elements of like someone has a restraining order, or they're thinking about getting a restraining order against someone, and I would see it. And you run into that dilemma. Then can I be a bystander in this situation, or do I have to actively get involved? So it would lead to some very odd scenarios.
Are those common things?
Restraining orders on a college campus, much more common than you'd think.
Yeah,
We talked about something.
Yeah, so like it. Yeah, I would imagine that's a difficult situation to be put in, because it's kind of like, you know how like doctors can't operate on their family members. This is like that to like a mob.
Yeah, but your family's like the entire like community.
Yeah, kind of. It's like it's like you're. Yeah, There's too much. What's it called?
Conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest, kind of, because you're. That's a really hard.
You know, the weirdest part of that is sometimes I will have heard the aggressor and the victim's story that on the same day without them knowing.
On the same day. So, okay, so how hard is it to be like, how hard is it to hear the victim story and then to hear the aggressor story and not be like,
Yeah. I think that a lot of that is what the training is for. Because if it was me trying to do quote unquote good for the campus, that's a very different approach than I'm going to push this person to make the best of their scenario because they are just by the sole purpose that they are in front of me. Right. This is in counseling terms, it's called unconditional positive regard, meaning that even if someone came in and they admitted like something terrible that goes against everything that my morals stand for, I'm actually in that moment supposed to reserve judgment and to recognize where do they want to go. Does it mean I have no push to it? No, that's impossible. But you put as much as your own side to your own self to the side and try to work with them. And I think this also goes down to the prophetic hadith. For me, the prophet was a chaplain, so that's a great tagline the chaplaincy circles used all the time. But where he goes, help your brother whether they're the aggressor or the oppressed. Right? And it's like, wait, we know how to help them if they're the oppressed, but why would we help them if they're the aggressor? And the unique thing about that is they didn't say that as a matter of like the prophet suggesting them to do something they weren't familiar with. Because for them, what it used to be was tribe over everything. So you would actually help your brother oppress someone because they were part of your tribe. Like, wait, but I thought Islam broke that. And then he corrects them, of course, and says to stop them in their oppression. So if you have someone who you know who's an abuser, you actually stop them in their abuse. Yeah, I see that being the role. But it's done in a way where most people who are, even if they're on the wrong side and they think it's good for them, you start pointing out then like, how is that hurting them? And oftentimes it is without them realizing
and there's correct me if I'm wrong, there's a hadith that is along the lines of the oppressor is the one that is oppressed by their own actions. Yeah,
I mean the term that's used most often when it's talking about a harm that can hurt someone else is the dhulm, and dhulm is first inflicted, and Allah will use the term that all they do is do dhulm against themselves, which is a harm, which is literally like a wound.
You know where I think I remember that from Diseases of the Heart.
Yeah, you went through that the text by Imam Maulud in Study Circle.
Exactly, great text by the way for any I guess non-Muslim viewers would not really.
No, I think that's a text that can be used. I've recommended it to non-Muslim audiences before, and they've actually loved it.
They're receptive to it?
Very much so.
You know what? I was just actually. You know what? I'm not gonna talk about this right now because what we wanted to talk about earlier was.
Well, we can just go with the flow.
Okay, fine. So, I was watching this video the other day, and so I'm looking for jobs right now, and so obviously I'm doing what I can, and then I'm also looking for the perfect du'as that I can read. So I found this video on actually one of my friends sent me it about it was du'a al-hajat, and the guy in the video was like, I recommend this to non-Muslim people, 2 non-Muslim people that both got jobs, and I remembered. So I was like, oh, I didn't really think that. I didn't really think so much about that, about like the effectiveness of a dua for a non-Muslim. And then I remembered how one time someone came to you with a certain problem and you told them to make wudu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can share that story if you want. It's been long enough.
Yeah, that would be a really good
So
story.
I remember you asked the question of like, what's one among the strangest things that's been there? This isn't one that sticks out because it was really emotionally difficult or anything, but it's just strange.
Yeah.
So, this happened a couple of years ago, and I'm pretty confident everyone in the story has hopefully moved down to a much better place. But I'm walking
Why do you keep
into.
moving my mic
Because I
over?
can't see. This is right in
Okay,
front.
fine.
Yeah.
So I'm walking into Silru,
Okay.
and there is a woman outside who's just sitting there, like on the. This is back when
Wait,
there was a
Sil-
sidewalk right outside. The
what's
Center for
old
Islamic
Silru?
Life at Rutgers University.
Old silver. I only know the building.
Yeah, so this is when we were on the second floor of a pizzeria. So we were. Silru has changed significantly in the last
You know where
couple of years.
Zucchini's is?
Is that the one behind the college?
Yep.
Parking?
So it was right above.
I thought people live there now.
They do.
Oh.
Yeah,
So-
it was.
Okay.
So that's where it was. I'm opening up for the day, and it's like 10 or 11 a.m. I usually don't even come in that early because you guys are all asleep at that time anyway.
Person in college. Chaplain.
Yeah. So I'm about to walk in, and there's this woman sitting on the sidewalk, and like she looks distraught. So I'm like, "Can I help you?" And she says, "I'm here to see the Iman, not Imam, Iman."
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's probably what like. I sometimes wear the hat of an imam. I'd be happy to see you upstairs. And she's like, okay. So she's like picking up her backpack and getting up. I open the door, and we had to walk upstairs in order to get inside the building. And as I'm walking up the stairs, she opens the door, and then she steps in and looks back, and then steps in and looks back. And I'm like, is everything okay?
I'm scared.
And actually what she says is, it can't follow me here. And she has the biggest smile on her face. And I'm like,
Wait, this is too early in the morning.
and I'm like, let's go upstairs. And because
Was she
I knew that
Muslim
she
or-
had a story. No.
Oh,
If I heard that, I would be like, oh, we're not open yet. Actually, just wait outside.
I knew there was a story here. So I have a long conversation, and like I do all the typical stuff of like making sure our administrators knows that we're open,
Yeah.
like because we take that type of stuff seriously. Like not ever having 2 people in the building at the same time. You always want there to be a third person. But we have a conversation for a while, and apparently this woman had been involved in a lot of occult practices. And like
In
it
Rutgers?
started off with tarot cards. It's much more common than you'd think. Started off with like tarot cards, and then eventually ended up being like trying to develop her spirituality. And something happened in one of their seances, and now there was a black
What is a
hooded
seance?
figure.
Like ritual.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
just call it that. I don't know that I want to spread more information about
Okay,
this
okay.
type of
Wait,
stuff.
this is a college student.
This is a college student. And so something had happened where now a black hooded figure was following her everywhere that she went. And but the interesting thing was this. When she walked into Silru, it couldn't follow her.
Has she ever been to mosque before or just Silru?
And I have
I
no
think she's
well,
never
I
been
know
to
where she got the information about Silru, but she asked me, is there anything you know that is a purification technique I can use? Because as she was tracking through me with this language, I was doing my best to reflect the language back. And that's one of the things that therapists try to do. Like we try to be well-read on enough subjects so we can authentically communicate with people, regardless of where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And so eventually, I ended up teaching her how to do wudu. I printed off how to do wudu,
Wudu
explained
for
the whole
non-Muslim
process.
viewers.
Wudu is the ritual. I hate the word ablution because ablution. No one uses the word ablution other than for the term wudu, but it's using water to kind of clean yourself before you engage in the formal act of prayer, the type of prayer that Muslims do 5 times a day. So it involves literally washing your hands, washing your face, washing your arms, and washing your feet. So I teach her wudu. And then she comes back a week and a half later with a couple of her friends and says it's worked amazingly, that feels much more like balanced in her approach. And she wanted me to teach all of her friends
They
too.
all had black hooded figures?
No, they didn't all have that, but they all wanted to like
Okay.
better
She brought all
themselves
her-
on this.
I'm getting like New York hot dog cart vibes. Like, guys, hey, this is pretty good. Like, come check it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that took place, and I remember the key takeaway of that story is that evening we had spirituality night where
Oh, wow.
sometimes we engage in like dhikr or like we'll talk about du'as and everything, and I'm just like,
bring
guys, I'm really glad that we do this here. I won't tell you why.
Oh my God.
But I honestly believe like when good things happen in a space,
Yeah.
there's an effect to that, and sometimes we're not even the beneficiaries of it.
Yeah.
Where she benefited from maybe we're people that believe in the unseen, that angels take presence when good conversations are taking place, and she felt the effects of it. And I thought the weirdest thing about that is I sometimes have that of like, dude, what's the point of like formal dhikr and like
Yeah.
doing it in a group? That confirmed it for me. I'm like,
There you go.
yep, it's got some massive consequences.
Did you ever follow up?
Yeah. That I'm not gonna. Again, there's only limited information I think I can and cannot share. But what I can confirm is I think that is a very good moment for her, and this becomes an example of you can do good for someone without necessarily tying in, confirming, or completely destroying the worldview that they're coming from.
Yeah. Have you ever had? Was that the only time you've ever like? When that happened to you? Were you like,
do you have experience?
or were you
with
like,
people
I've done this before.
supernatural-
Let's head upstairs. Let's get this done.
So I couldn't catch your question. What
No,
was
but
it?
Do you have like, I'm just to use layman terms. Do you have like other supernatural experience, like people coming in with supernatural experiences?
It'll happen from time to time, but this is where I think we need to have a much more healthy conversation of like what supernatural means, and this comes into I like having the conversation also of what people define as a miracle. A miracle is only a miracle because you weren't expecting it. Like some of the most simple things that we do, like waking up every day. Or like not getting, there's 3 million people who are driving on a highway and like there's 2 accidents, like that's a pretty miraculous thing taking place. But same with supernatural experiences. There are people who will attribute it to very supernatural causes. And do I strongly believe that there can be causes that we can't necessarily explain with our current language? Yes. Do I think there are supernatural things? No.
So you're comfortable with
Yeah,
most
because
of it.
oftentimes it's the perception of the supernatural is what's being found. Another example I can give of this is there was, and I feel comfortable sharing these because they're so long ago, and I don't think it's going to do anyone any harm.
Okay.
But there was a woman who came in who had something similar where when she would stay in a room for long enough, she would feel like they were scratching, and that people were talking about her. So like whispers were taking place, and she would even say like shadows would start moving, and she was like really freaked out. And I sincerely believe that she believed that this was happening. And then like I got eventually part of the story was the only thing that stops it from happening was when her brother or her father or her uncle recites the adhan, right?
Was she Muslim?
This woman was Muslim. Was when they recite the adhan, and the interesting thing about this is I had to ask the question. I was like, so the adhan seems to work. It's like, yeah, it's gone for hours after that. I'm like, okay, cool. Why don't you do the adhan? And she's like, what? I can't do the adhan. I'm like, why can't you do the adhan? And she thought about it for a long time. She's like, no, I can't do the adhan. I was like, do you know the adhan? And she did the adhan. I read the adhan. She knew the adhan already, but I just confirmed that she knew it. And she started crying. And she said in that moment that like, I didn't know I had the power to do this. And I'm like, you do. And she started doing the adhan anytime she felt those whispers coming on, and she was fine. it was, to me, I would diagnose that as like she did not have confidence in herself, that she has the ability of changing the seen and the unseen world around her. That was a narrative that was completely found within her, and what it took is just popping that.
Yeah.
And that changed her life in a significant way.
It's also reflective of her issue, I think. Like, right, she said she heard whispers and stuff. Like, that's like normally something you would see in someone who's like insecure and like, I was wondering what other people think of me. And I think it was a.
Not necessarily. I think this could have been a case. I mean, there's a huge case to be made. I'm not saying there is no such thing as schizophrenia. There definitely is.
Yeah.
And this could be easily diagnosed as like, this would be auditory hallucinations that are very, very characteristic of a schizophrenic experience, right? Yeah. That's not to say that there are not techniques to manage schizophrenia that are not that you can only use allopathic means to manage schizophrenia. Allopathic meaning medical intervention, more appropriately pharmacological intervention.
Okay.
In order to kind of address it. My apologies.
No.
So that there are cognitive things that can be done. This would be a major example where spirituality plays into helping her with her mental health.
Right. And it's what you said one day that I still remember is there's different. You can choose to name something different things. You used the example of the goblins. What was this? The
gravity
right? Goblins.
Yeah.
That are so you can. It doesn't change your reality to say that gravity is what Einstein believed it to be versus a bunch of goblins, invisible goblins, pulling everything down towards the center of the earth at a speed of 9.8 meters per second squared, or at that acceleration.
Yeah.
It doesn't essentially change reality. So like, are one of those necessarily right? Actually, they could.
Hey, you could still function in a world that works. And actually, I like using the example of angels for that.
Yeah.
Right? That if we don't have a narration that says that angels are things that bring things to the ground, right? Mm-hmm. That's not a concept. Yeah. But if we use that term, does it change the way we react to gravity? No, not at all. And if anything, I think there's a power to making it animate rather than inanimate. And the power I have for that is we name angels, like the angel of death. We name the angel of death. One is because we believe there's an angel of death. But the other side is when you name something, you care about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't name... I'm not someone who names my phone. There are people who do that. I'm not someone who even names Actually, I do name my car. My car's name's Rexy. Don't ask. My daughter likes it, so that's maybe where that name comes from.
Okay.
It's an i3, so that's why. And it's got a range extender, so its initials are Rexy anyway.
Computer. It needs your password.
Just wait. Do the thing.
Sorry, guys. 1 second.
No worries.
All right, there we go. Yeah, fine.
But when we name things, we only name things that we really care about. Yeah. So when a country, one example of this would be a boat. We name boats collectively as a civilization. I actually had an opportunity of living on a boat for the summer. That could be a whole topic for another conversation. But we had named, the boat's name was Normandy. And the way the captain would talk about Normandy, like she was a living person, would ask, have you taken care of Normandy's sails? Have you taken care of the knots? Have you taken, like, we would talk about Normandy as if she was a living entity. Why? Because we relied on Normandy to literally keep us safe. Yeah. There's a reason there's so much like God language in sailing, because you rely on your ship so much. When the United States, England has a funny story about this. England made a giant carrier, like those like military carriers, and you always name it because it takes the resources of an entire nation to build one of these. It's like a $3 billion literally building on the sea, and they decided for the first time that they were going to have the internet take part in naming it.
Oh, that's not what I was thinking, but yeah.
So when they did that, guess what name won?
Bodie McBoatface.
Bodie McBoatface. So they didn't end up actually going with that. They made it the initials of Bodie McBoatface. But if you look at what the initials mean, it's like the BM. That's what they call it now. But it's Bodie McBoatface. So that's a funny thing. But we name things that we have value in.
Exactly. Yeah.
As Muslims, we name death. Like, you're gonna meet the angel of death, so that you have a relationship with the angel of death. So you have a relationship with your own death.
You know, that's really interesting. I was looking at saw this thing recently. I don't remember what it was, but the word for death in Spanish is or the word for death in French.
Muerto? Yeah.
Yeah, in French and Spanish, I think they're feminine.
Yeah.
They're feminine, and the word for death in I forget what other language they were talking about, but it was masculine. And so the depictions of death. Now these might have been arbitrary, like like when people were, deciding on what these languages, what gender was assigned to what word. These might have been arbitrary, but then they saw that their depictions of death, well, the one that called death a masculine thing was a man, and the feminine one was a woman, which is really interesting. Like the thing that you call it and the name that you attach to it can totally personify it in your head.
Yeah. And I think that's important. So I think it's extremely healthy that we as a culture have the idea that you're going to meet the one that takes your life.
Yeah.
Because you will prepare for it more.
Yeah.
So, like, which one was functionally better?
Yeah.
The one that said that death is a biological process that you can't do anything about?
Yeah.
The one that says that, no, you're going to die and you're going to meet your death.
Yeah. And also there's a difference between making death like a thing that we care about, because if you don't care about it, then death isn't actually a thing. It's like the absence of a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when you attach a being to death and you attach a name to it, it becomes like a very tangible thing.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's shift in conversation, because I want to hear about this.
I'm still getting shivers from the black hooded thing. I have to drive home.
That was
I have to drive back for an hour on an empty Route 18 at night. That is not going to be exciting.
Yeah. That's not the scariest story. I'm not going to share the scariest
You have to.
story.
Oh,
you
come
can't
on.
say that's not and not share it.
Oh.
You have to. You have to.
You know what?
You have to. You have to.
You gotta share the story.
You have to.
So what I am contemplating on doing is actually having a night that there's lots of events that's at Silver that happen regularly, and one of them will be sharing these type of stories that we have seen hopefully years ago.
But you have to say you mentioned it. Even if it's not the scariest, pretend it's the scariest and tell us one more. So in our minds, we think it's the scariest.
Well, if he's supposed you.
Yeah, but shh. It's placebo effect. We'll be fine.
If you really don't want to tell it, you know.
Yeah, but like that's only if you really don't want to.
There's like a yin yang, good cop, bad cop dynamic going on between the two of you.
Yeah.
But I'm secretly glad he's doing that. I'm just the guy that's like, oh, I want you to listen to him.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I can't even. I have to drive home. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna choose to abstain this time because there's also another thing. Anticipation is gonna do so much more for you right now than the story.
Wait, can you like tell us off camera?
No.
Oh man.
No. But you're gonna tell it eventually in
Yeah,
some
probably.
setting, right?
Yeah.
So then what? You can
But
tell
why
us
would
off
you tell us
camera.
off camera then?
Maybe.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll take that.
We need to make a quick Patreon account and say if you guys exclusive.
Exclusive content, right?
Okay, so what I want to talk about was actually something that was really intriguing earlier. I'm a big Godfather fan. I have a cup's not here right now, but I have a cup that says the Godfather, world's best Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I have a sweater that I just got recently. It's like a pink sweater.
Bright pink sweater.
With the Godfather.
Mhm.
Also, like, that's just when people give nicknames in chats to themselves, it's just the one I default to. Anyways, I'm a big Godfather fan.
Yeah.
I have not watched The Godfather.
What? And you call yourself a movie buff?
Everyone says this, by the way. Okay, I've seen almost every single modern movie. Like, if a movie has come out in theater past like 2015, I have most likely watched it. But the problem is, older movies are movies I need to watch in my own time. And that doesn't happen now.
I get that, but you have just killed your own credibility so much.
Yeah.
2015 onward?
Yeah,
Do you realize how tiny of a sliver?
I see like older movies. Yes, don't get me wrong. I see a lot of older movies. But like I want to.
Your expertise is on 2015 onward.
Because I go to the theaters, or used to go to the theaters every Friday without fail at 7:30. Like, no, with my friend, every time AMC A-list, pay the $20 a month, watch 3 movies, free per week. Every time we used to go. So that's been like a consistent thing I've been doing for years. So that's where I can always comment on that. And then also I watch movies like on my own in my free time. But like The Godfather, one, my mom says I should never watch it because I have ADHD, and she's like, you're never going to get through it. But I don't believe that. But she's always told me to not watch it. So I push it off and like until the...
Well,
I might motivate you right now to watch it then.
So is this discussion going to contain spoilers?
No.
Okay.
Not really. Because it's
more thematic.
Let me put it this way. So I teach a course on Survey of Muslim Civilizations, in which we try to go through literally from the death of the Prophet ﷺ, up until modern Muslim history.
Yeah.
So we're talking like World War II.
Yeah.
And the first couple of weeks, for people to really understand how government used to function, they need to watch The Godfather. And I know that sounds weird, but when we think about government today, we think about the entity that controls your schools, roads, anything you can name, you can think of, like vaccines and this. Like, there's so many things that the government is in charge of, right? But go back to the 5th, 6th century. What was people's interaction with a government? And forget in the major empires like the Byzantine Empire or the Persian Empire. I'm talking about the Arabs, right? What was their appreciation of government? It would be the person you go to when an army is approaching you. They occasionally set trade practices. They provide protection, and they provide a moral code.
Mm-hmm.
What does The Godfather provide? What does the gang in a space provide? That's basically it. Protection, some semblance of a moral code, some semblance of kind of direction of where we're all headed. So and how do you owe allegiance to each other?
You're telling us we should be part of a mafia?
No. And I'll share something interesting about that in a little bit. But and how did they show allegiance to each other was actually by respect. Right? And also what that even leads to sometimes is there's going to be coups. There's going to be someone else takes over a position of leadership. And you see that all over the place in like early Islamic history. But the last point I'll say is, then why choose The Godfather? Well, Sicily and Italy, right? Where this whole Godfather system or Don system developed, guess where they inherited it from?
Yeah, it's like right across the Mediterranean.
The Arabs conquered it.
Yeah, because it's right there. Yeah.
It was actually Arab Asabiya. That's the term that's found. Asabiya is loyalty. It's like tribalism, except it's a tribalism that's associated with honor. It's like a chivalry system. Mm-hmm. The Italians, Sicilians, they inherited it from the Arabs.
Do they have
who exported it to where we see the mafia system in the United States.
Do they have a word that sounds like...
Does it match up with like any word across cultures?
I'm going to have to look at that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because that'd be interesting, because there's a lot of like...
But Asabiya is... So that's why, like, you're like, what does this have to do with... Well, no, this was that system exactly.
Yeah.
If you want to understand how rule worked way back in the day, just watch that movie. Look how they show allegiance to each other. Look how they inherit from each other, and how there's even warfare that takes place from one family to another family is exactly what you see happening in early Islamic history. Mm. That one family takes over from another family. They expand their territory. One is known for righteousness. One is known for this. Yeah. What tends to last over time. When there's a major faction coming, like a war is coming forward, they all suddenly unite and suddenly rely on respect again. Mm. And in our case, just change that to deen.
Yeah,
and it still works. So that's why it helps you understand world history.
Have you seen a lot of mafia movies, or is The Godfather like?
I haven't seen a lot. I've probably seen maybe. I'm trying to think of some other ones I've seen. I saw that recent one.
I was just about to say that they played it in Rutgers cinema. Like I saw that twice.
Which one?
My mom, The Irishman.
Yeah, there we go. Dude, that was so long though. Oh my gosh, good filmmaking, but I have a tolerance. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw once.
If you can get through The Irishman, you can easily make it through The Godfather.
Yeah, So I'm not worried. I should just watch.
Have you seen you probably have.
Before my point was, in that movie, what's happening is that they're trying to take over the trucksters, like the union thing, right? They're trying to establish their presence there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like you see, like I don't know what years The Godfather set in. Is it like
The Godfather? It's World War One, like right after World War One. It's right before World War Two, because he goes to war.
Right, because Michael comes back. Right.
So early 1900s, let's say. So like I think The Irishman, if I'm not mistaken, is relatively modern, like not.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's
yeah. So like it's even though it's relatively modern, you see those similar aspects like with the family, like respect and like people saying like there's like a guy like I think it's Joe Pesci's like if you need like something, I own this strip of the highway from like freaking Boston to.
Dude, that's how governors worked.
Yeah.
So that's why I say you can explain so much of history by watching that, because it has so much of the cultural backdrop, which was the basis of society. In movies like The Godfather and movies like The Irishman, these are systems that are working on the periphery of the primary systems of government, of trade. Yeah. But back in the day, those were the primary systems that everything else worked on the periphery of. Yeah. So that's what helps you kind of really understand it.
You know, have you watched The Sopranos at all?
No, I have not.
Okay, The Sopranos, I've watched most of it. I will say, as a disclaimer to viewers, it is a naughty show at many times. And if you're going to watch it, skip through a lot of parts. Put that disclaimer out there. Okay?
We eventually have to have a conversation about everyone having a haramometer. We can talk about that later.
Yeah, we could talk about that. Yeah. But okay, so I watched The Godfather and I watched The Sopranos afterwards, and there's something really something that draws me to those movies, or to that movie and to that show, to things like that, to entertainment pieces like that. Just as a man, there's something so commendable about it, and there's something that just draws me to it. Now, are these great people? I mean, I don't think shooting someone.
It depends
in the
if
face.
You're underneath the family, they're great people.
Yeah,
they got
exactly.
your back. But like if you're, I guess looking from a third person point of view.
Right? Well, yeah, okay. So objectively, they're like shooting people in the face for like for like getting their order wrong. Are they good people? Probably not. Not. Yeah. But is there something commendable about that community of men and them all having respect for each other? Yeah, I think so. I think everyone in The Godfather, everyone who's like part of that family, in The Sopranos, they're men that just know how to function well. They're capable, they're competent, they do bad things, but they're good at what they do, and they're men amongst men, and they provide value to each other.
Yeah. I think this is the bigger conversation of media in general. Is like I hate when people get on the bandwagon of like you should never watch anything. Yeah. There's no entertainment. All entertainment is somehow wrong. There's an inherent need that each one of us has, and I'm gonna go into almost like Carl Jungian themes here. But like you need to process certain parts of your own identity, and you oftentimes do that by watching it play out in form. I mean, the most basic form of this would be how the Greeks loved tragedies. Why? Because catharsis needed to take place. You watch it happen on the screen so that your own tragedy doesn't seem nearly as bad, or you've like exercised those muscles enough where when it happens to you, you're actually a better person at the end of the day. Part of me would argue, well, what's the point of stories in the Quran? They do something similar. Now, I'm not saying that that's their only purpose. That's a huge purpose that they have. That's why they're eternal. And you'll see the same thing happening within popular media types as well.
Yeah,
where it's, sure. There's a good article written, I believe in like 2012 or something, that Hollywood only makes 7 movies. And I would say because they hit at 7 really good archetypes that the typical human being needs to process in order for them to be successful. There's probably more than just 7 of them, but they exist. So there is a proper value of it, but we also have to do a cost-benefit analysis. Is it like you said, they do some weird crazy stuff too. It's like, well, we got to do that benefit analysis of like, well, is that worth it? And this is totally a side point, but like I can get behind some of it, but I'm gonna sound old-fashioned here. But like, dude, there are certain shows that I don't tell me how good of a story it is. Like I can't get past that. Like, no, like a typical Muslim personality should not watch a show with rape, like extreme violence, like open nudity all over the place, and like that just seems weird to me. That's just an acceptable, that's just an acceptable form of entertainment. This is where again I say that everyone is going to have a balance of what they can tolerate and what they can't tolerate. To me, my own bias coming out, that is way past the line. And I think we as a society, if that is within our line, we really need to think about how strong it is that the other parts of us are, like decency, culture, like all of that, how much of that we have in order for us to withstand something so horrific by choice, even.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to actually say. Like in the Irishman, and we were talking about before, even though they might lack some more modern concepts, right? It's like people would argue, like, oh man, that must have been so oppressive. They couldn't have spoken out or done anything free, or like creativity's dead and stuff like that.
Was it about the Irish mafia?
The Irishman? No, it's just that the guy's Irish.
But is he part of the Irish mafia or is he part of the town?
No, he's
That
part
was
of
the regular mafia.
He's part of the regular mafia?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's like the irony. Like, he's an Irish man who's part of the
Because
Italian.
there is an Irish mafia, but that's like the Walmart brand, like of the Italian mafia. Anyway,
Don't. I would never walk into an Irish.
I'm not gonna release that.
Irishman's dead. Oh my God.
You just what's the term they use?
Target on his back.
They're gonna put a hit on.
That's not a hit on you. There we go.
No, that's the saying. The Irishman, he paints fences.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he paints fences. Do you know what that means?
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yes.
So the whole the quick summary of the movie basically is, who's the actor? I forgot the actor's name. The main guy.
I know. I'm terrible. I remember people by their movie names.
Robert De Niro.
There we go. Robert De Niro. Yeah, how could I forget that?
Robert-
That's the guy.
That's what I was
man.
saying. That's what I was embarrassed. Anyway, Robert De Niro is an Irish dude who gets involved. Like, his job stinks or something, so he gets involved in the dealings with the Italian mafia.
Wait, when did this come out?
This is really
2019? 2020?
Isn't Robert De Niro like?
He's old.
So
old.
yeah, they use de-aging software in it, which is
Yeah.
really cool. Like, like there's like a scene where he kicks a dude that was really, really whack, but like ignore that part.
Okay.
But anyway, because he's an old man with de-aging software. But the point is, he starts off with, he realizes that his life sucks and he needs to like do something about it. So he meets a friend and he's like, "What can you do for me?" He's like, "Yeah, I can paint houses." Blah blah blah. Slowly moves up the ranks, up, until he becomes like near the very top, like one of the very top. Like there's like, they symbolize it with like the ring,
Rings,
right?
yep.
Like 2, 3 of them have the ring, and
They
give
let
them-
an Irish guy get that high?
Exactly, right? So that's the thing, right? So my whole point of that was, some good things out of that is like, they don't care that he's Irish or whatever. They still see that he's loyal enough, and he's proven that year after year, task after task, right?
Yeah.
And that sort of like, even though some people might call it an ancient system, I feel like a lot of that is lacking in current modern society.
There's a beautiful meritocracy that's to be found, which is just amazing. Like, and I think, not that I want to connect this back into politics, but like that, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I think there's a beauty to it. That's one of the stories. Remember I said that Hollywood tells the same story over and over again?
Yeah.
That's called the rags to riches
Yeah.
story. I think that's awesome. That's like, and
That's awesome.
that appeals towards young people. And I can see why you both find that appealing, because that appeals to like, I can change the world. I can be whatever I want.
Yeah.
I think that's a powerful story that we are supposed to be attracted to.
Yeah, for sure.
One point I will say about this is going to sound a bit weird, but one of the things I see often is young men who I think I find them on the non-motivational scale, if that's a proper term to use. Like, they're not as motivated as they should be. And one thing I've been just tracking is, I think video games are a good. This is going to sound like it's not related, but it is. Video games are a good measure to see whether people feel like they are mobile in society or not. And what I mean by that is video games and sports. That'll be the other thing.
Okay.
Because when we view sports, we typically see someone just because of their pure talent, because of their pure ability, was able to get success. That's what it represents for people.
Yeah.
And so do video games. Why? Because rules in video games are fair, right? If I do this, this, and this appropriately, I can succeed.
Yeah.
And when people in society feel like they can't go anywhere, they start living out their fantasies through sports and through video games. Why? Because those are inherently fair systems. When they don't feel like they live in an inherently fair system, they have to escape to an inherently fair system.
That's interesting
That
because
was not where I thought you were going with that. I thought you were going to say something like people who believe they can make it will work harder or something.
No, it's the opposite. They actually use it as a means of escape. And I think the prevalence of those two mediums in our society points towards that young people don't feel like, they feel like the cards are stacked against them all the time. And that's why they need these escapes so often.
he is someone who spends 10 hours a day playing League of Legends. Like,
No, I was going to say
he was
that.
hoping you were gonna say that it was good for him.
There's good to be found within it.
No, because
Also, he sucked.
I would understand. That's interesting. Because Daniel Kahn was here last
He
year.
said he said the same thing.
Did he though? He kind of said that
He said the same thing. He said like role playing games, especially role playing games, and to an extent other games. A game like Breath of the Wild, for example, you know, you can,
such a good game, by the way.
Yeah,
So
really good game. But if you like, you can kind of go there and be like, I'm Zelda, or no, sorry,
You're Link.
I'm
Come
Link.
on, that is the
Oh my
most
God, I'm cutting
quintessential
I'm cutting
problem.
that out.
Doesn't he
I
have
play
the
this
game?
game.
He has the game.
I literally play this game.
Uh-huh.
I'm not done with it.
I'm calling you out on your cred, though.
But it's been a while since I played. Or you can be like, I'm Link, and like every time you finish a quest, like I did that. Like that was me that did that.
Yeah.
You see your little character going around. You hit a monster for like 100. You're like, I'm strong. Like that's me.
Yeah.
I'm going on this quest. And you can fall into that really easily. I was thinking like recently, I like sometimes I play pickup basketball. You know, there's a park near here. There's some guys and they're like probably like 30 years old and they're getting real worked up.
Yeah.
Real worked up about this pickup basketball game, and I respect it to a degree, but it's a little bit pathetic when you're trying to get in fights with kids that are my age.
I think you actually captured that quite well. So there is a balance, and I think there's good to be had in video games. There's good to be had in reading novels, right? Because it's supposed to be almost practice to enable you to do really well. So when you look at inherently fair systems and you succeed at them, that's supposed to give you hopefully like practice to succeed in the other systems that exist outside.
Yeah.
The problem is when they turn into an anesthetic instead. That you don't need to succeed in those, or the only way you're going to succeed is in those fake systems.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with it. I actually think it's pretty healthy to once in a while engage in video games, to once in a while be lost in a fantasy novel or a movie or something like that. But when it's used as your only means of enjoyment, and it doesn't actually do anything to your real life, we're getting into some weird situations.
Yeah. Do you know anyone that's in Challenger, by the way?
I know someone's in Masters.
You know someone that's in okay, these are really high ranks
High
in League,
people,
like
yeah.
really high ranks. So
Like top 1%.
no, top 1%. I was top 1%. I'm not even close to as like
Top 0.025.
top like 0.001%. I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, now none of these, for the most part, the people that I know that got to that, they spent a lot of time. They sunk a lot of time. They are kind of lacking in everything else, and they do kind of. They're
You have to invest
to
your
a
life.
degree.
That's
seems
true.
Like they're compensated.
Back in the day, I used to play StarCraft 2
Mm-hmm.
when it first came out, even before any of the expansions were out. And I got decent. I'm not really amazing, but I got into Diamond League.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized I had to invest close to like an hour and a half a day just to maintain my rank.
Yeah.
And that's the day I decided I'm not playing multiplayer games ever again.
An hour and a half a day seems tame to me.
Yeah, that's like one
That
league
seems-
game or two league
that's like two
games.
league games.
I played-
That to me sounds you have to maintain your rank. I'm like,
Yeah.
what fun am I actually having?
Yeah. But
So
what
that's what I
age-
gave up multiplayer games
What age were
forever.
you? What age were you?
I was probably 17 or 18.
That's way too mature.
That's a lot of discipline for
When I
17.
first got into league, I spent no lie at least.
Yeah.
Like my day would end at 12, and I'd stay up until 3 every day playing, and then go to sleep.
Yeah.
Because
I'm not proud of it. I did the same thing.
Because
Well,
it's not even to maintain. Because league, I don't think we're not in the stages where you can decay. That's like for the top players that they can.
I was.
You
I
can
literally
decay.
was.
But like, so like for
I was
us,
really
we
good
just
at
used to
that
play
game,
to
man.
go up in rank, and like
Well,
I did not think.
well.
that was
Also, we
fun.
played with friends. So I
that
think
too.
that
Yeah, it's socializing.
I get it, but when it starts turning into an obligation that you have to do, you have to really wonder, like,
Yeah.
is this getting me enough for my investment?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your time is valuable. Your social investment is valuable.
Yeah.
I would use that towards something important.
For sure. Yeah, I agree that when
It
I
goes-
did that,
it goes-
like right now, coronavirus is just a long vacation sometimes. That's what it feels
Yeah,
like.
that's
Especially
that's
because
how I think of
I'm
it.
taking 12 credits, so like I just have a lot of free time on my hands. But right now I do that, but when I have school and stuff, like I'm not gonna. Actually, during all of last semester, I don't think I played
Yeah, I've
more than
played-
5 games of League.
I've played like 5 league games in the past 40 days or something. But like I'm done now with league.
Yeah.
But the thing I'm gonna tie back to is the social dilemma. The guy who that was the funniest part for the entire movie for me. It was the guy who invented the recommendation system for YouTube, and he was like, it doesn't recommend you videos that you'll like. It will just recommend the nearest rabbit hole. So that once you fall into that rabbit hole, you will just self-propagate. You will just go down yourself and just keep on finding the video, right?
Yeah.
So, but then he's like, yeah, I'll still fall for it. Like, I'll still get lost in a couple rabbit holes
Yeah.
myself. And he invented the damn thing.
Yeah.
So you're aware, you're cognizant, right? But like 9 times out of 10, people will not care and just fall for it anyway.
Are you guys familiar? Either of you bio majors? No, right?
Nope.
There's this experiment called the Tindenbergen experiment.
Sounds very familiar.
And it's what basically boiling down the experiment was they found these seagulls that would hide their chicks in like cliffs and they're really well camouflaged, and the chicks only kind of become apparent when the parent seagull comes in.
Become apparent APPA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they would become. You would be able to see them.
Yes.
When the parent would come in.
Yeah.
And then they have these bright orange mouths that they open up, and then so the mothers could and fathers could feed them. And what they were trying to figure out, like, these little creatures don't have good eyesight. Like, how are they recognizing that the parent is there? And so what they did is they made a bunch of like dummy seagull heads, and they would go by the chicks to get out of the cliff. And they had limited degrees of success, to the point where it was like, 60% if we have this one, 30% if we have this one, and they kept getting better at it.
Yeah.
And then they eventually got to the point where they recognized what the baby chicks were looking for. They were looking for a red dot and orange. So orange with a red dot, that's all they were really looking for. Okay. So what they did is they took a pencil and they put a red dot on it. Like a typical number 2 pencil, they put a red dot.
It didn't look anything like a seagull.
It looks nothing like a seagull, right?
Yeah.
And then they would wave it, and it was something ridiculous, like a 97% rate of like the chick responding to it, when the actual seagull has a rate of 91%. Working.
Also, they're probably ruining those little baby seagulls' lives because now they're just gonna not.
They're not though. They're just following.
The point of it is they found the trigger, which was they're able to do this more successfully than the actual thing that the trigger was meant to take you towards.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That's what's being done with these dopamine hits that we're constantly hit with. Is they figured out how to get the mechanism when dopamine was supposed to be an awesome. Let's use another example, oxytocin. Oxytocin is the connection hormone. Like when someone smiles at you and you smile back, right? Like that feeling of like, oh, they valued me. That's oxytocin is released because it's a connection hormone. It's supposed to be used for real human connection. But then like advertisers do that better. But instead of you getting a human connection out of it, you spend money instead. So it's that thing. It's that pencil and you're the seagull just opening its mouth.
Yeah.
Why? Because like they figured out the mechanism of how to extract that from you without giving you what it was actually meant to give you.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this when we talked about Mad Men.
Yeah.
So, you said you haven't watched Mad Men. Basically, Mad Men is
the greatest show ever.
It's really good.
It's okay. I said the spiel before, so I'll just repeat it.
What?
So basically, Mad Men, the show, is about Don Draper, which you mentioned before. It's like a charismatic. So the term back then, I think it was the 60s, I might be off, was called ad men, because they were advertisement people on like.
No, it was Mad Men because they were on Madison Avenue.
No. They were advertisement people, right? But because they're on Madison Avenue, they made it Mad Men. So like they're both terms.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah. So like that's what the show's called, Mad Men, right? But like it's a double, like it has double meaning because they're also crazy and stuff.
Yeah.
So the show.
Really good title.
Yeah. So the show follows Don Draper on his escapades of like doing advertisement stuff, and he has like a wild personal life, like crazy, like so many things I don't want to spoil. But the thing is, there's an iconic scene which is like in the very beginning of the show. You know what I'm talking about, right?
The one we talked about with you, Don. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, the show we talked before, so we're not going to repeat much. But what he says is, there's a lady there, and the lady's like, don't you believe in love or something like that, right? It's like, what's your view of love? It's like, and Don Draper's like sitting at the bar, and he's not like, I don't care about love and all that stuff, like acting all cool, right? So
what he said was.
Yeah. So then the lady's like, what do you're so dumb. Like, why don't I believe in love? I believe I'm gonna find my soulmate or whatever, blah 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 blah, right? And Don Draper responds, and he's like, I created the idea.
No. You gotta nail the line, bro.
I don't know the line specifically.
Oh yeah, I know the line.
Okay, he's
gonna do this. Let me set the setting. So she's like, oh, what do you mean love doesn't exist? And he says, oh damn, I kind of forgot the line.
This guy. Wait. No, I remember the line. I remember the line now.
No, you don't.
I know. It's not love. Love is wrong.
No, it is love.
Are you sure it's love?
Love doesn't exist. It was created by guys like me to sell nylons.
Yeah, that was basically the line. Like they create these like constructs that become so ingrained in society that people don't even realize that they were constructs to begin with.
Definitely.
Yeah. There's
So many examples of that, like the idea that diamond is forever. These are all marketing terms. The idea that a wedding ring needs to be 6 months' salary.
Yeah.
Like, they're all completely artificial.
That's a thing.
Well, that's an interesting thing. Well, okay. I thought I heard 3 months.
Sure, insert whatever you want.
He
but-
got scammed. He got scammed.
Wait, what? No.
That's hilarious. But I heard 3 months, and actually I saw this interesting thing. God, I hate being like, I saw this on the Joe Rogan podcast, because that typecasts me as a type of...
You are that type.
typecast. I'm not that type. You're that type. I'm kind of that type. I fit it. The Joe Rogan podcast is good, but I think people that are like, oh, I just saw this on the Joe Rogan podcast, I think there's certain type of people. But anyways, I saw this on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Unconditional positive regard.
But anyways, what I saw on the Joe Rogan podcast was this guy talking about something called like Vahuvian or Jehovian, something like that.
Jehovah's
Signal.
Witnesses?
No, no, like a Zahuvian signal, and like basically it's like the 3 month salary for the ring. Unfortunately, ring companies have benefited, or jewelers have benefited greatly off of it. But it's like kind of necessary, because it's one of those signals that shows your spouse that you are financially capable, because you can waste.
3 months.
I get that. So it's following the biological argument that like a peacock can carry this stupid frill of feathers, and I can still get away from predators while having all of this. So it shows that you have like disposable energy or income or whatever.
Right, exactly.
Sure, but what is the intention behind it? Do you see my point? The intention, who made it? The intention behind that one was, we want to sell more rings. I understand the other way around.
Yeah.
When people themselves decide to choose that,
Yeah.
that could be healthy. But when a company decides for an ulterior motive to choose it, that's completely not appropriate.
Yeah, and I think it's like, it's so hard to have a good head on your shoulders and be like, and to look at things objectively. Every time I buy something, I'm like, are they getting me right now? Like, are they getting me right now? Like, every time I go to a store, I recently got this skincare thing. It's called Lumen. They got me.
Can we talk about the ads?
Yeah, they targeted me.
I've never gotten the Lumen ad, so I don't know what this is really about.
Well, it worked. I'm the idiot that it worked on. Anyways, they got it, but I thought like, because the thing is, I also had like 4 other people tell me I should get it. It was like, Yassine told me I should get it. Like a couple people. Yeah, they got to them. So then, since they told me I should get it, I was like, oh, maybe this isn't like the biggest like scheme. Like, I guess people can vouch for it. But then I ended up getting it. Also, I kind of also got it because I forgot to cancel my free subscription, and I was like, okay, what the hell? But
that's how they get you.
Yeah, that's how they get you. But when I got it, I was like, are they getting me? And I had to sit there for a while and convince myself that they're not getting me. That they went really hard on the ads, not because they're compensating for something, but because they just wanted to reach me, and they reached me. But it's a good ad. But it's a good product. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a complicated dilemma to just be in, because it's not like you don't need products.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So is everything just out to get you, or is nothing out? Like, it's not gonna be one of those like there's a rule that you can always follow.
Yeah.
I think this is where the solution to this is actually human connection.
Yeah.
Where like, what should we rely on is actually the people around you, and
so, like,
hopefully trust that they're competent enough to not fall. Hopefully, all of you don't fall for the same advertising tricks.
Yeah,
I think we did.
That could happen, and
Yeah.
an easy argument could be made against that these companies realize that, so now they buy reviewers on YouTube who seem like everyday people, but they're also in the like advertising thing. But I think that is the solution. Is when you have interactions with more people, you realize, hey, that guy's not as susceptible as me on these things.
Yeah.
Maybe he'd be a good person to keep because they bring value to my life in this way.
Yeah.
So I think that is the solution, but I don't know if it's applicable for everything.
I always like to think I was that guy that was like, oh, I'm never gonna get tricked by
We all have
marketing.
weaknesses. We all have weaknesses, and you got to just own up to them.
Yeah. Also, it's really nice sometimes to just like give in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember when I was like it's a short story, but I remember when I was a kid, I'd always want a chocolate bar, right? But your parents would always say no.
Yeah.
Like, why would I spend 99 cents? on like the chocolate bar. But now since I make my own money, every time I go to the store, I buy my own Hershey's bar. And you see it because I can.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like my declaration of independence. Like, yeah, like that feels so good because I can do it and like I don't have to worry about anyone saying.
Yeah, exactly. When I got that Switch, that was the first time. It was the first time I got a console, and it was the first time I got my console myself. So I was like, yeah, and now I have it there. And I don't even play it that much, but I'm never gonna sell it or nothing because I could play that when I want to play it.
Yeah, it's yours.
It's this idea like your own hard work kind of pays off.
Yeah,
I have legitimately seen kids who were like gifted a Porsche at the age of 16 who treat it like trash, and then I see another kid who has a Honda Civic with 2 colored doors. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like it was obviously an accident, and then they couldn't find the right door, so they attached another door from another Civic or something, right? Yeah, it's like a car you pay like $1,000 for.
Yeah.
And they treat it like it's like the best thing ever because they paid for it with their own money. There is an element of that of ownership and enjoyment.
Yeah, for sure.
I would take that to an Islamic perspective and say like that was actually your rizq, like your enjoyment, like it was written for you to have enjoyment out of it, rather than like just something I own.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
You get so much more enjoyment from it when you actually work for it. We were just on the last episode, or 2 episodes ago, we were talking with Yusuf. We were kind of like joking around, but like it'd be cool to just have a rifle, hunt a deer,
I don't remember.
And eat
kill
it.
it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Put it on the stove and eat it, and then just feed it to your whole family. Let's like throw it on their plate. Just eat it up.
Live like the old days.
You know what I mean? And there's something so satisfying about doing that.
But why do that when you can just get beef jerky on Amazon? Halal beef jerky for like $5.
Wait, really?
I'm kidding.
I'm saying exactly. That's probably what goes through people's heads.
Yeah, but the accomplishment, and even if we're taking it from a biological perspective, right? The amount of like endorphins that are going to be released in every step of that way is so much more than the instant gratification.
Yeah, for sure.
That we'd get. So yeah, I would definitely recommend you doing that. Don't buy a gun right now. It's weird. But I see the appeal, and this is even to like simpler things of like I think there is a counterculture to like let's start building stuff yourself, do things thriftily. I think more than the economic part of it, I think it's the actual fulfillment part of it. People are going to be happier as a result.
Yeah,
for sure. Like one of my friends, actually, Udon just made a chair, and you showed it to us, to be honest.
That's like, it's not that great, but he loves it so much more, right?
And it's a sick chair, and he sits on it, he's like, I made this. I just made Maggie like 2 nights ago. Now, I make my own food sometimes, and other times I'll go and I'll buy it. But, you know, my mom and my grandma, Allah preserve them, they used to make me a lot of Maggie, and it always tasted good, but this one tasted real good.
I picked up gardening in this weird time that we're all spending a lot more times indoors, and like I grew my own zucchinis, and like I have spent so many hours cultivating those things. And I remember at some point going in the store and actually saying I don't even eat zucchinis. That's not like a thing I do. But I looked at the store, I was like, dude, that was like it's like $2 or like $5 worth like my entire season that I grew them. But I'm like, and I've spent way more than that on like gardening equipment and random things like that. But I'm like, with the accomplishment I got. Like when we finally put them into our food, it was so good.
It's probably immense. Speaking of things that have changed, by the way, if there's any time restraint, just
we're getting to it.
But okay, so then maybe this is one of the topics we can end on. Speaking of things that have changed in your life recently,
what's changed?
You have a new baby boy.
I do, alhamdulillah.
Oh, you do?
Congratulations. Ayub Kareem Aslam was born on, I should know this, July July 19th, 2020. Yeah. He's going to grow up. He's going to like, you didn't know my birthday? No, but alhamdulillah, he's quite the character. He's 2.5 months old. I'm enjoying every moment of it. One of the things I really appreciate is when my daughter was born, and anyone who's ever seen me with my daughter, like I bring her everywhere I can. But I didn't spend a lot of time at home in the first couple of months because I had just moved to New Jersey and I had just started a new job and everything. Now that I'm doing most of my work from home, like I'm being there for all of the firsts. Like it's such a good experience. So it's
Is it different with first? Some of our viewers may not know. I'm sure there's a lot of people that do know. But you have a daughter. You had a daughter first, and now you have a boy. Is there differences, and is it like vastly different? Because it's only 2.5 months. So, is a baby, or do you still see difference?
So that's a major difference I have seen. I used to think a lot of what my daughter used to do when she was like a couple of months old, I thought like that's generic baby. It is not generic baby. That was my daughter's personality, because I see the contrast now that there are from my son now.
So is your
they develop a personality, not more timid necessarily, but they develop a personality way sooner than we give them credit for. So little things like being a morning person or a night person, I thought like a baby is a baby, right?
Yeah.
No, my son, when he's up in the morning, he's all smiles and trying to get your attention. He's 2 months. He can't even roll over yet.
Yeah.
Right? My daughter, no, like when she woke up, she'd be like, "Meh." Like she'd just be knocked out until like noon.
Yeah.
Little things like that, how they call for attention, like what they do right after they've eaten,
So what's
how
the
they
difference
respond to
between
diaper changes.
How they call for attention between a boy and a girl?
Well, I don't know if
It's
this
not
is
boy and
completely
girl,
boy and
just-
girl. Though I can say, like, there are 2 statements in the Quran which are awesome. One is that a boy is not like a girl. I can confirm that 100%. And the second is one is not like 2. I can confirm that 100%. But I mean, the slight differences I see are how they call for attention. I generally see that she was not independent in the sense of, like, how she would try to get to you. She would make an effort, but not really like go out of her way of trying to move herself in order to get to you. She'd call out for help.
Okay.
Versus him, he'll call out for help in the beginning, but once he realizes that has failed, he will start doing everything in his power. He'll throw his blanket off. He'll like try to jump off, get off the swing. Like there's an active approach that he has that she didn't. Like she would just keep raising her voice more rather than try separate things.
Do you think that might be like
There's probably a biological reality to it.
like between boy and
But
girl?
I haven't seen enough children to realize that maybe this is just a personality thing. Could it be? It does make sense to me gender-wise, right?
For sure.
That like men tend to try to break things rather than call for help when they need it, right? This is like a very typical masculine trait. It could be, or it could be that he just happens to be this more than she does, and it doesn't correlate with their gender kind of stereotypes.
You know, it's something that's really interesting. Okay, we talked about this with Daniel in a more serious sense, but I'll approach it in a more like lighthearted sense. But it's super hard being a parent. I mean, everyone knows that, but so I've been reading this book recently. It's written by a psychiatrist, and he basically talks about how like 0 and 4 to 5, whatever, are like really formative years.
I thought you were about to say you were reading a book on how to be a parent.
No,
What
I
the-
wasn't.
Like, do you have to share something?
Yeah, I was about to say, what the... He's about to retire from the podcast.
Oh boy, that would have been quite an announcement, huh? But,
His whole family is like, what?
This is the first time.
This is how he gains the viewers.
Yeah.
But so I was reading this book, which was not for me to better understand how to be a parent. Although hopefully maybe one day inshallah I could use
Everything
these.
you technically do is to make you a better parent. So, sorry.
That's profound. But yes, but anyways, this was more like, it was supposed to be introspective. So it's supposed to be like, look at your own childhood and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's really hard, more so, like, people always talk about how parenting is hard. And I'm like, oh yeah, you feed your baby and you gotta like wake up in the middle of the night. Nah, you're responsible for the development of a whole human being. And that's crazy. And one of the things that I want to talk about is Dr. Shadi. Recently, he put out a post which I thought was really insightful. He said like with his own kid and with people around him, he'll be modern psychology will tell us use this method where you say something good before and then you give a criticism and then you say something bad after. He's like, that's good. Were you familiar with this post?
I didn't read it, no.
Well, he said that's good and all, but when you're raising a kid, you don't want them to be soft.
Yeah, I think I've seen him make posts like that, and I agree with him.
Mm-hmm.
That there is, and this isn't like a male-female thing.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, this isn't like be harsh to your men and be like soft towards your women. No, I don't think it's one of those. I think parents, there needs to be authority at some point, and also children need to be able to withstand some harsh truths, as long as, again, you do disarm in other ways. And what I mean by that is like, both parents maybe shouldn't do it at the same time. That ends up being a problem. But to be able to, because then there's nowhere to go, unless actually both parents can be harsh if you have really good community. because there is somewhere to turn to. Hopefully that's going to provide some level of softness or comfort when it's needed. But yeah, there is an idea of like, the parenting books have fads all the time, but one of the fads is like, never talk to your child while standing, like always kneel down to their level. And I'm like, no.
But then you'll never be an authoritative figure.
That's an issue. Yeah, so that's exactly what I mean. There are times in which a child needs to know you are an authority.
Yeah, exactly.
This is going to sound a bit weird, but one of the things I was very intentional about with my daughter, because she was on campus all the time, is like college students, it's not are really like good/bad at this, but like they always just give her candy and like random things. And I really appreciated. I really appreciated when someone comes to me and asks me, can I give this to your child? Because again, they shouldn't supplant the authority system that's supposed to be there. The child is supposed to know my parent is going to be in charge of my sustenance, not I can go to whoever I want. And one of the things I was really proud of as a parent is at some point, like when she was given something, she would come back to me and she would ask me, can I have this right now? And just for the sake of asking, I'd usually give in, and because like it's my daughter asking for candy, of course I'm gonna give her candy, right? But like I really appreciated that because there is a hierarchy that's supposed to be established, and that's part of where sometimes that tough love comes from. But don't overdo it. I think there's a complete opposite side too, in which where everything is just toughness, and you never have had a heart to heart. I've experienced this so many times where children, like students, have told me they've never once had a serious conversation, and it's typically with their father. And then, like, that is completely problematic.
For sure.
But on the other front of, like, my parent can never tell me something that, and without me storming off and getting angry at them, like, dude, that's a problem too. Like, they should be willing, like, a good friend, for example. A good friend is not someone that if they tell you something, you storm off and run away. No, like, there's enough of a friendship built between them that it can withstand the harsh truths as much as it can withstand the compliments. And yes, I use the term withstand compliments. Compliments aren't freely given either, but they should be given enough where it becomes meaningful. Right, or scarcely enough where it becomes meaningful. That's the same relationship with a parent.
There's a give and take, I'm sure, between being a friend and being an authoritative figure.
Because friends who only give you compliments and never give you truths, they're not your friends. They don't want you to become a better person at the end of the day. They're just there for convenience.
Like entertainment in a way. I think the same idea kind of goes with, like, in a much simpler sense, like when you're horse playing with a kid. Is that the word? Horse playing? Yeah, when you're just like horsing around.
Rough and tumble play is. I actually tell this to young fathers of. Of course, there's a limit to this. Don't do this to a 2-week-old child. Like, so it's a bit much. But like when your child has gotten to the point where they're a bit sturdy, like they want to be like thrown up and down within reason, up and down. Like when you see the way my wife handles our 2-month-old child, and I handle him with a bit more like roughness. I did the same thing to my daughter. It's not like I only did this to my son. It's because they need someone to do rough and tough play with them.
Yeah, and they learn their own boundaries when they do that. And then when they go too hard, you like make a face, you're like, don't do that, right? But then you got to teach them their own boundaries. It's the same with like growing up when I was when I was a kid. I spent a lot of time with my cousins and I was the youngest, right? And I also grew up. I've kind of made myself out to be like this rough and tough individual from North Jersey on the podcast. That's the meme here. But I grew up in North Jersey. All right, people are better. People are more creative with their insults. So like I grew up. Shut your mouth. Anyways, I grew up and like to a certain degree, like the kids gotta feel some. You gotta say something that's gonna make them cry a little bit. Like somebody's gotta do it.
It's always the cousins.
It's like, but I really appreciate that now because now I grow up and somebody says something to me and I'm not gonna cry immediately. You know what I mean?
It has to be a well thought out, holistic system though, because that's the concern that. If you focus too much on that without the balance of providing warmth, providing people to develop their confidence, to be able to speak and make mistakes in front of you, that's absolutely necessary as well. So it is always going to be a balancing act.
That's true. I think there's a give and take. Well, I think that was actually. I think that was a great. Well,
ending point.
What's up?
Well, that's a good ending point.
Yeah, it was a great ending point. I really, really thoroughly enjoyed this podcast.
Definitely.
I think this was a really fun episode. Thank you so much for coming on.
I've had a good time being here.
And inshallah, hopefully, maybe one day you could come back on.
Sounds good. I look forward to it.
So real quick, Spotify.
Oh yeah. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube. Everything will be released on everything. Yeah. So just go to our Instagram for updates, basically.
Yep.
But yeah.
Do all those good things. But anyways, thank you for watching.
And we'll see you guys next week.
And real quick,
Oh,
we might actually put this thing at the beginning, but do you wanna say, like, in case people want to reach out to you or anything like that? Do you want to say that in the podcast?
Yeah, I think that's okay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's leave that out.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for watching.
And we'll see you next week.
See you next time.
So make